subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Smiled and shook his head. I was attacked and kidnapped for 3 months. Maybe he will miss us so much during this time. So I think when Tony comes back, he must be the first to see us. Hearing what Peepo said, Happy nodded slightly. If there is anyone in this world who knows Tony best, then it must be Ms. Pepper Potts in front of me. As time went by, a plane landed slowly. As the cabin door opened, Peepo saw Tony wearing a black suit jacket and a bandage on his left hand. Tony, who was supported by Colonel Rhodes, walked down. Seeing Tony approaching, Peepo had a smile on his face. During this time, Tony really lost a lot of weight. When he got off the plane, he saw Peepo standing there to greet him. Tony noticed right away that her eyes were red. Just as he got off the plane and was about to go in front of Peepo, he saw a group of people pushing a stretcher rescue vehicle over. "Are you kidding, Rhodes? Tell them to go away quickly." After finishing speaking, he ignored Rhodes' support. Step by step, he walked directly to Peepo, who couldn't hide his smile because he saw him at this moment. Your eyes are red. Are you crying for the long-lost boss?" Tears of joy. Glad I don't have to look for another job. I hate looking for a job. It's still the familiar Tony's personality, and it's still the words he can say when they meet. Very good, although I was kidnapped for more than 3 months and suffered all kinds of torture and pain. But Tony is still Tony. Yes, but your vacation is over. Back to the car. Looking at his boss, Ms. Pepper, through the rearview mirror, Happy asked, "Where are we going, sir?" "Happy, go to the hospital first. Let's check Tony first." "No." Before Peepo finished speaking, Tony directly denied this choice. "Why no?" "Tony, you should have your doctor examine you now. If you don't go, you don't go. I don't have to do something." "Tony, your current physical condition is the most important thing to pay attention to, so you need to go to the hospital." "I've been stuck for 3 months. Peepo, I just want to do 2 things right now." Interrupting Pepper, Tony Stark looked into her eyes and said very seriously, "The first thing is, I really want to eat 2 cheeseburgers right now." "Cheeseburger?" Seeing Tony's serious expression, Peepo handed him the tote bag containing the cheeseburgers. "Cheeseburgers too? Wow." Looking at the handbag that Peepo handed over, Tony was silent for a few seconds. "Peepo, what did I say? I knew you understood your boss, so couldn't wait to pick up a cheeseburger." Tony took a bite hard, and then said contentedly while eating, "You know, during the 3 months in the cave, I miss it all the time. Thanks to Mr. Superman for reminding me." Seeing Tony's satisfied expression, Peepo shrugged his shoulders and said, "I was so overwhelmed by the news that you can come back today. I even forgot how much you have suffered in these 3 months. It was Mr. Superman who reminded me that maybe I should bring 2 cheeseburgers." "Mr. Superman?" Tony, who was eating a cheeseburger, couldn't help but pause when he heard Peepo's words. "Who is Mr. Superman? Your new friend? How did I not know you had a friend named Mr. Superman before?" Tony, who was chomping on the cheeseburger day and night, suddenly felt that the cheeseburger in his hand was not delicious. "Pepper, actually have a friend named Mr. Superman? Damn it. It's like my best friend has another better friend behind my back. It's like coming back from a business trip to find that my house has been stolen." "Oh, such a poor analogy. Can I have my social life?" Looking at Tony's expression, Peepo smiled and said, "Although I am your personal assistant, Tony, I also have the right to make friends, don't I?" "Definitely, no one said you couldn't have the right to be friends." Shrugging his shoulders, pretending to be relaxed, Tony Stark ate the cold cheeseburger, which didn't feel so sweet, and said, "It's just that there are so many liars out there. Who knows what kind of guy that so-called Mr. Superman is?" "Tony, okay, I won't talk about it." Listening to Pepper calling his name in a long voice, Tony Stark swallowed the first hamburger. "There is one more thing that I have been thinking about during the time I was locked in the cave. That is, I want to..." "It's impossible. Can you stop thinking about it when you just came back? It's not what you think." Seeing that Peepo misunderstood himself, Tony said, "I want you to hold a press conference immediately." "A reporter's press conference?" "Yes." The expression was gone from the sour expression just now, and Tony Stark put on a very serious look. "Don't ask why. You will know in a while. Now do as I say, Pepper." After finishing speaking, Tony Stark said to Happy, the driver and bodyguard. Happy drive, Stark Industries. Well, wait until you announce your decision in front of all the media. Learn more about Mr. Superman. Chapter 57. So, who is Mr. Superman? Two floor-to-ceiling windows worth 200,000 yuan. My God, this may be the most expensive compensation for glass in the history of SHIELD. Sitting opposite Su Che, throwing snacks in her mouth, Natasha Romanoff smiled and said, "The money has already been deposited into your account. But I don't know why. I always feel that Nick Fury's compensation is so fast. It's still willing to do so, as if the compensation for the two windows in your coffee shop is not given to you, but to him." Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Su Che picked up the phone and took a look. Well, there is an extra 200,000 in the account balance. The video of our fight with Olivia Stan last night was filmed, but my face was manipulated so that no one could spot me. After swallowing the snacks in her mouth, Natasha Romanoff smiled at Su Che. As you said, before the number of superheroes increased, it's best not to show your face for a while, lest you lose your own life. In addition, there are two things to find you this time. Picking up the coffee and taking a sip, Natasha Romanoff frowned and asked, "Did I just add sugar or real sugar?" "I didn't notice. They're all put together anyway." Listening to Natasha Romanoff's inquiry, Su Che smiled and shook his head. "Okay, I originally wanted to quit sugar for a while. After all, I haven't trained much during this period, and I still want to keep fit." Without dwelling too much on this question, Natasha Romanoff looked at Su Che and said, "Two things. The first thing is that Nick Fury wants to meet with you. The main purpose is to buy for SHIELD, the kind of metal hydrogen that only you can compress with water. After all, in the words of the researchers in SHIELD, metallic hydrogen is equivalent to the holy grail of the physics world, something that is full of hope but cannot be realized for the time being. So, the price is negotiable. You can just report the amount as you like." Having said that, Natasha Romanoff raised her eyebrows. "If you really want to sell, then don't lower the price. When physicists all over the world want to make it, but only you have it privately, then don't save money for S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, although SHIELD purchased it, the World Security Council paid for it." Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Su Che nodded. "I'm not an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Why should I save money for SHIELD? Although I don't care about money. After all, it is quite simple for us people to get money." Hearing what Su Che said, Natasha Romanoff nodded noncommittally. "When I escaped from the Red House, I was worried about everything. But the only thing I didn't worry about was not having money. For those with super abilities, the morality and kindness in their hearts often drive them not to abuse this ability, the most basic constraint. Like Superman in the comics. If it weren't for being bound by moral values and good intentions, Superman would have been the king of the earth. The other thing is that a man is back." Looking at Su Che, Natasha Romanoff said very seriously, "Perhaps his return will make countless people feel joyful and even excited." "Who's back?" Seeing Natasha Romanoff's expression, Su Che was a little confused. What Natasha Romanoff said was that Tony Stark was kidnapped and returned. Probably not. Even if Tony Stark returns, it will not make countless people happy. Not to mention exciting. A superhero who has been abandoned by the times, has been sleeping for nearly 70 years, and has been commemorated for 70 years. His return will definitely affect and inspire many people, including the agents in SHIELD. After the words fell, Natasha Romanoff looked into Su Che's eyes and smiled while holding a cup of coffee. "Don't look at me like that. The sour words were said by Nick Fury. I'm just responsible for paraphrasing them." Steve Rogers, the legendary who exists in the Memorial Hall. Hear from Natasha Romanoff on the return of Steve Rogers. Su Che was indeed slightly surprised. Although the name was mentioned in the Black Gold Diary, Su Che already knew that Nick Fury would definitely send someone to the North Pole to find him, but they didn't expect that they were found in advance. Not only that, listen to what Natasha Romanoff means Steve Rogers has come to his senses. And Natasha Romanoff just relayed Nick Fury's sentence. The return of the legendary hero will definitely inspire the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ah, that's where it gets interesting. Does it mean that through the contents of the Black Gold Diary recorded by oneself, already let Nick Fury notice in advance that SHIELD has Hydra forces? Well, follow Nick Fury's character. It would be fun to find out about Hydra ahead of time. Well, have to keep prodding Nick Fury in the diary. After all, the more Nick Fury discovers the depth and power of Hydra and S.H.I.E.L.D., then the more important you are to yourself. This is very helpful to increase the trust value. No, the press conference after Tony Stark's return has begun. Looking at the TV hanging on the wall, at the moment it is showing a press conference about Tony Stark after he returned from the kidnapping attack. Natasha Romanoff smiled at Suche. I didn't expect that the first thing he did after he came back was not to check his physical condition, but to hold a press conference. Sue, what do you think this playboy wants to announce to the media? Seeing that Natasha Romanoff seemed to be very interested, Suche pointed to the opposite side and said, Stark Industry is just opposite, and the press conference was held on the first floor. If you are interested, you can go to the scene to observe. Let's forget it anyway, Is he crazy? Looking at the live TV screen, Tony Stark was sitting on the ground, announcing directly to the media in front of him. The Stark Industries weapons manufacturing division will be permanently closed. Looking at the pictures of the media flocking to interview, Natasha Romanoff looked at Suche and asked curiously, doesn't he know what the Stark Industry is supported by? Just like what Natasha Romanoff thought, many people heard Tony Stark suddenly announce that they would close the Stark Industrial Weapons Manufacturing Department. Everyone thought Tony Stark was crazy. Even Obadiah Stine, who managed to appease the reporters, thought Tony was out of his mind. Pulled him aside, but before Obadiah Stine asked, Tony Stark asked him first, Oba, do you know who Mr. Superman is? Walter. Originally, he wanted to question Tony why he suddenly announced the closure of the Stark Industrial Weapons Manufacturing Department. Why not Obadiah Stine, who consulted with him in advance? After hearing Tony Stark's question suddenly feel a little confused. Who is Mr. Superman? Clark Kent? Kal-El? Chapter 58, The Seventh Diary, Tony is back. Yes, Tony Stark, who was kidnapped for 3 months, is back. The first thing I did when I came back was not to see a doctor, but to hold a press conference to announce. Permanently close the Stark Industries Weapons Manufacturing Department. He doesn't know, because of his decision, will the stock of Stark Industries plummet and property evaporate? No. As a genius who can make circuit boards at the age of 4 and an engine at the age of 6, he knows this very well. But he is still like this, making a decision without hesitation. Although everyone does not understand his thoughts, including Peepo, who he trusts the most at the moment. But I know, this is the beginning of his change. Inside SHIELD. In fact, from Phil Coulson's been watching over there, and word came back that Tony Stark had built a crude armor. Then, after escaping wearing armor, Nick Fury has been waiting for the update of Suche's 7th diary. Although the 6th diary was just updated last night, and he almost killed himself. However, Nick Fury knew that Suche would definitely update this diary. After all, Tony Stark is also recorded in the Black Gold Diary, one of the members of the future Avengers Alliance family. So he came back. How could Suche be indifferent? Sure enough, I didn't wait in vain tonight. At least I saw the 7th diary I was thinking about. Actually, I once asked Tony over a drink why he shut down the Stark Industries Weapons Manufacturing Division. That was already in his heart after he reconciled with his father. Howard Starr, facing my inquiry, he smiled and said that Stark Industries Weapon Manufacturing Department has gone against his and his father's original intention. Not only failed to protect common people and maintain world peace, but created one disaster after another, causing many people to lose their homes, and even their lives. So, before he escaped from the cave, he made up his mind. When he said these words, I could see a trace of shame on his face. It was like when he faced the accountability of the mother who lost her child after his speech at the university. He couldn't even say a word. Obviously, we saved more people during the battle in Sokovia, but facing the mother who lost her child, Tony, who has always been very eloquent, became speechless. Look at the things written in the diary. Nick Fury didn't care at all. He wanted to see Tony Stark, Mr. Howard Stark's son, get better. However, as to whether the weapons manufactured by Stark Industries saved more people or killed more people, Nick Fury didn't give a damn about it. Not that he despises life. It is that countless people die every day in this world because of weapons. If it really cared so much, then SHIELD wouldn't have to do anything else. The most important point is that small sacrifices under the big goal are inevitable. At least Nick Fury thinks so. But looking at the things recorded in the Black Gold Diary, Nick Fury was very relieved in his heart. I can have such a character and have such thoughts. But the Avengers to be formed in the future, the superhero in this team cannot be the same as myself. Otherwise, it will be a bigger disaster. Nick Fury knows. You can't be a superhero yourself. I'll never be Steve Rogers myself. Like Steve Rogers will never be himself. What kind of person, what kind of identity does what kind of thing? This is all doomed. In the apartment, look at the content recorded in the diary. Wanda pouted subconsciously. Although he knew that the real murderer who caused the death of his parents was Obadiah Stane. But to this Tony Stark guy, Wanda still has a bit of grudge in her heart. After all, he created the weapon. But looking at what his future husband Suche said in the diary, Tony Stark's mentality has changed. Wanda just snorted lightly, but didn't express much. On the other hand, Natasha Romanoff thought about what she saw in the coffee shop with Suche during the day, regarding Tony Stark's announcement of the closure of the arms manufacturing department. Well, although I was like many people on the internet at the time, I couldn't understand it. But now it is clear. It turned out that these 3 months were what prompted Tony Stark's mentality to change, then slowly become the beginning of one of the superheroes. It seems that I can no longer use my previous understanding of Tony Stark to see him. If it weren't for a superhero with a parallel world like Suche, he knew very well, if not knowing, what was going to happen in the future. So neither Nick Fury nor Natasha Romanoff would easily think that Tony Stark's mentality has changed. The country is easy to change, but the nature is hard to change. Although Nick Fury and Natasha Romanoff do not know the meaning of this idiom. But it's about the same. Chapter 59, Nick Fury. Someone steals peaches. Ugh. Someone wants to pick peaches? Perhaps, as Pepper said, Tony Stark has a warm heart. This change of mentality, coupled with the reprimand of the mother who lost her child, is also the reason why when the Sokovia Agreement came out, Tony, a cynical superhero, will become a staunch supporter of the agreement, thinking that superheroes should be under supervision and obey orders. But Steve, who has always followed orders, thinks that Avengers should not sign this agreement and should not be a supervisor of an organization. He said that this will slowly degrade Avengers and eventually become a weapon of an organization. Then, with no one able to convince anyone, a civil war broke out among the Avengers. Actually, almost just a little bit, Steve signed that name. It was only later that the Avengers fell apart, fighting on their own, being wanted and arrested. The harmonious and warm family will never be the same again until we paid a heavy price later. The Earth, and even half of the life in the entire universe, were reduced to ashes under the snap of our fingers. Sokovia deal. Avengers falling apart? Look at the content recorded in the diary. Nick Fury sat up straight, and his expression suddenly became serious. Although in the first few diaries, Nick Fury knew there was a civil war ahead for the Avengers. For this reason, he also thought about how SHIELD should prevent the outbreak of this battle, or blunt the civil strife among the Avengers. After all, this is the superhero team he formed himself. The purpose is to prevent someone from trying to destroy the Earth. So he will definitely not see civil strife in the future of the Avengers Alliance with his own eyes. But now, look at the content recorded in the diary. Nick Fury also had to get serious. After all, the consequences of civil unrest in the Avengers are horrific. Earth universe. Half of life was reduced to ashes. Don't mention these. Just looking at the Sokovia Agreement recorded in the diary. Obviously, this should be the fuse that broke out among members of the Avengers Alliance. Although I don't know exactly what happened in Sokovia. But read between the lines, judging from the sentence, Tony thinks Avengers should be subject to regulatory supervision. Obviously, this must be a certain department's excuse that, for the safety of the public, the Avengers' ability is too strong to make the public panic. Want to turn the Avengers into a pawn in their hands. After all, according to the records in the diary, Avengers had saved the world more than once at that time. then they should have a very high voice and support in the hearts of all common people. Supporters must be all over the world. In this case, anyone who uses integrity, not a typo, to prevent harmony, or wants to control integrity, will not miss such a good opportunity. The department that established the Sokovia Agreement should have seen this. In order to gain the support of the people, they want to hold the Avengers Alliance in their hands. After all, mastering the Avengers Alliance means mastering the support of the people, and even mastering the right to speak. This Nick Fury is very sure, because although he is the king of agents, he is the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. But he was originally also one of the uprights. Good guy. I managed to get together these superheroes who are kind, firm, and able to save the world. In the end, this group of goddamn coincidences just wanted to reach out to pick peaches? Pooh. A group of damned reptiles for profit and for the superior. No wonder everyone would say that those upright families were full of filth and filth. But what were you doing at that time? Why would something like the Sokovia Accords be allowed to happen? Could it be that he was already dead at that time, or lost his position as the controller of S.H.I.E.L.D.? After all, if I was still there, I would never watch this kind of thing happen. After all, what kind of thing would make him ignore this happening? With doubts in his heart, Nick Fury decided to continue watching. Perhaps there will be a key point of my own doubts next. Actually, at the very beginning, the scale of civil strife in Avengers was not large, but the opinions were different. No one is willing to kill his teammates who once fought side by side with him. No one is willing to use the most powerful force on their family members. It was only later that the guy who lost his daughter succeeded in his scheme. He let Tony see with his own eyes that the real cause of his parents' death was not a car accident, but Winter Warrior, Winter Soldier Bucky Barnes. When Tony asked Steve in disbelief if he knew about it, but kept it secret, Steve's answer hurt Tony deeply. That's when the Avengers, the real ones, began to break up. Chapter 60, Sue Che is leaving. Nick Fury is absolutely unacceptable. Winter Soldier. Seeing this name, Natasha Romanoff subconsciously frowned and pronounced the name. Natasha Romanoff. Do you know the Winter Soldier that Sue wrote in his diary? Hearing Natasha Romanoff mention the name Winter Soldier, Wanda turned her head and asked curiously, "Meet Winter Warrior in Legendary." He raised his hand and lifted his clothes to reveal a scar on his abdomen. This scar is a bullet pierced by the Winter Soldier, so I will never be able to wear a bikini again. Looking at Natasha Romanoff's stomach where the bullet had pierced through it, Wanda touched it with some distress. At that time, it must have hurt, although Wanda and Pietro never called Natasha Romanoff a sister. But he experienced the tragic experience of losing his parents, wandering and joining the Hydra base, etc. Wanda, who always wanted to have a family, met Natasha Romanoff. Whether it was the distrust at the beginning or because of the joint ownership of the Black Gold Diary. In addition, during this period of time, Natasha Romanoff, whether it is daily life or any file size matter, she cared for them like a big sister. How can this make Wanda, who has always longed to have a family, resist? To put it bluntly, Wanda is only 14 years old, and there are still 10 days before her 15th birthday. And even if it is a stone, it will be warmed up slowly, right? So, after looking at Wanda with distressed eyes, Natasha Romanoff, this cold-blooded Black Widow, who also longed for a family very much. He also stretched out his hand to embrace the younger sister Wanda in his arms. "It's okay. It's already over. In all these years, my sister and I haven't experienced any big storms. This little injury is nothing." Facing the two people who hugged each other again at night, Pietro thinks, well, Pietro didn't come out to use the bathroom tonight, so I didn't see this scene. Pietro didn't see it, but Nick Fury saw this sentence in the Black Gold Diary. As the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Nick Fury naturally knew how Howard Stark and Ms. Maria died. The reason why I didn't tell Tony Stark, it was because he was worried that Tony Stark would be impulsive and want to avenge his parents regardless. This will kill him for sure. I just didn't expect that this concealment would eventually become the real reason for the civil war between the Avengers. Gotta find a way to let Tony Stark know the news in advance. Solve the hidden dangers of things and not leave an ambush for the future. This is what I, the holder of the Black Gold Diary, should do. Thinking of this, Nick Fury revisited the Black Gold Diary. The reason why I am writing here today is because during the day, Natasha Romanoff told me that the man is back. Seriously, when I heard Natasha Romanoff say that Esichayeldi found Steve sleeping in the frozen Arctic, I'm really surprised. I didn't expect Esichayeldi to find him nearly 2 years in advance and wake him up. The future has changed? Or, because of my appearance, many things started to advance? I just don't know if the hammer will fall from the sky ahead of time. But it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. It doesn't matter. Perhaps I am very similar to Steve at this moment, a person who was abandoned by the original world. The only difference is that Steve will work hard to adapt to this new world in the future. And I am still in hesitation whether to integrate into this world. I don't know, I should integrate into this world, become a member of the Avengers Alliance again, and continue to be a superhero. You should still stand by and act as a qualified spectator in the parallel universe. Forget it, don't want to, let's just leave it at that. See if there is a chance in the future to visit other worlds. After all, the Parallel Universe channel will open in the future, and it will be interesting for the 3 Spider-Men to appear together. Perhaps I can use this opportunity to go to other worlds for a while. The diary writing stops here. Nick Fury's brows were always furrowed, especially when he saw the last sentence. Nick Fury's heart skipped a beat. Go to another parallel world for a while? What a joke. You need to know in Nick Fury's plan for the future Avengers Alliance, Su-Che can be said to play an extremely important role. There are even many spiritual mentors who will become superheroes for the first time in the future. As a result, now, Su-Che is not sure whether to continue playing. Depend on using Su-Che's previous diaries, he knew in advance that Tony Stark was kidnapped. Know in advance what will happen in the future. Even successfully found the frozen Steve Rogers legendary hero. A superhero like this who has a lot of strength, is determined, and knows what's going to happen in the future. Now, he actually said that he was not sure whether he wanted to integrate into this world and continue to be a superhero to save the world. Do you even want to go to other parallel worlds? What a joke. Absolutely not. I absolutely cannot accept the best gift that fate bestows on this world. In the end, I went to other parallel worlds because I couldn't integrate into this world. I can let him have the life rights of common people, and I can give him the right to be himself. It can even allow him to have rights and status far beyond the common people. However, I absolutely cannot accept that he was abducted by other parallel worlds. Thinking of this, Nick Fury immediately picked up the phone and dialed out. As the phone was connected, Nick Fury said in a deep voice, "Hill, I have a very important task for you. It's time for the 2 of them to meet." Chapter 61 added a new diary quota. It's actually her. Well, Sue will leave this world. Looking at Natasha Romanoff, Wanda had a slight worry on her expression. Facing Wanda's question, Natasha Romanoff was silent for a moment, then put his arms around Wanda and said softly, "I'm not too sure. After all, Sue is not originally from our world. Although the world he was in has been destroyed, there are still countless parallel universes. If he doesn't feel nostalgia in this world, then maybe in the future, he will choose to leave this world if he has the opportunity." Hearing Natasha Romanoff's answer, Wanda blinked, then nodded and said, "I understand. As long as Sue has a sense of belonging to this world, then he will stay here, right?" "That's right." Gently rubbing Wanda's head, Natasha Romanoff smiled. "Wanda, what you mean is that you treat Sue. It's nothing." Leaning on Natasha Romanoff's shoulder, Wanda said as it should, "In the Black Gold Diary, Sue is my future husband in a parallel world, right?" Then the Black Gold Diary also said that after Sue came to this world, he searched for traces of himself in the parallel world and found that this world does not have him, right? "That's right." So, looking at Natasha Romanoff, Wanda spread her hands very seriously and said, "Since there is no 590 in this world and the original him, it means that he is my future husband. It's all an arrangement of fate, since the former knows who my future husband is. Then you can't let go easily. Otherwise, how will I start a family and have 2 lovely babies in the future? You can't find someone casually or create a robot like Sue." Looking at Wanda's swearing look, Natasha Romanoff suddenly felt that this awakening was right. If Sue is Wanda's husband in the future, then there is no him in this world. That's like what Wanda said. What will she do in a few years? There are more than 10 days until your and Pietro's birthdays. Gently embracing Wanda, Natasha Romanoff smiled and said, I'll invite Sue over then. Good. Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Wanda gave a sweet smile. There's a word I didn't say to Natasha Romanoff. That is, Sue is really attractive, especially under the handsome and resolute appearance. The vicissitudes of the stories between the brows are really mysterious and charming. Inside Sue Che's apartment. Finally, Natasha Romanoff's trust value has finally reached 90%. Looking at the prompt on the system, Natasha Romanoff's trust value has reached 90%. Sue Che breathed a sigh of relief. Receiving the reward without any hesitation, a stream of heat began to circulate in Sue Che's body in the next second. A moment later, nothing else happened. The imagined filth being expelled from the pore did not happen. Clenching his fist lightly, a strong sense of strength came from his body. At the same time, Sue Che found that his vision, hearing, acuity, etc. had all been improved by huge amounts of. He held the coffee table in front of the sofa and tried it. With one hand, he easily lifted the coffee table, which weighed more than 100 kilograms. Even Sue Che didn't feel much effort during the whole process. Tisk 10 times the peak physical fitness of ordinary people. Host, Suke. Age, 19 years old. Identity, writer of Black Gold Diary. Member of Parallel World Avengers, pseudo. Ability, Superman body defense perfect advanced version. 10 times the peak physical fitness of ordinary people. Extremely water control ability perfect version. Current list of Black Gold Diary holders. Wanda Django Maximov, trust value, 97%. Natasha Romanoff, trust value, 90%. Nick Fury, trust value, 73%. The number of Black Gold Diary holders that can be added. One person. Look at the system page. Sue Che saw that the widow's trust value had reached 90%. Just let the system open a quota for new Black Gold Diary holders. Looking for new places for Black Gold Diary holders. As the system started to look for new quotas, Sue Che also watched the name list and profile picture flashing constantly. Sue Che is also very curious about who the next holder of the Black Gold Diary will be. To be honest, the specific owner of the next Black Gold Diary does not have much influence on Sue-san. But if it is a member of the Avengers Alliance, it will be very convenient for Sue Che to refresh their trust. If it's Dormammu the Dark Lord, Kong the Conqueror of the Time Administration, or Kong the Exile in Ant-Man 2. Even some inconspicuous little characters. After all, it's not easy to increase their trust value, isn't it? Just as Sue Che was thinking, the number of new Black Gold Diary holders gradually stopped. Looking at the finally randomly selected name, Indy didn't know whether to laugh or say something for a while. To be honest, she is definitely not as bad as Dark Lord Dormammu or other small villains. To put it bluntly, it's really far away in the sky. That's right, the new addition to the Black Gold Diary is the Queen of Asgard, the wife of the god King Odin, Frigga. Well, it's Thor's mother. So how do you brush her trust value? Hey now, look at the name of Queen Frigg of Asgard. Sue Che thought for a moment. Although Frigga was raised by a witch, but who said that her trust value cannot be broken. Most importantly, the frozen Steve Rogers was retrieved and unfrozen in advance through the Black Gold Diary shield. Then Wanda and Pietro were brought back from Sokovia to be raised by Natasha Romanoff. Since these things are ahead of schedule, the fate trajectory of these people has been changed because of his appearance. So, can Frigga, who is worrying about Thor and Loki, also let Odin exile Thor to the earth in advance? After all, one is struggling with how to teach her child to be a mother worthy of the throne of Asgard. Seeing that reckless, arrogant, and belligerent son again, after going to the earth in the future, he will become a superhero, become a qualified king. Then maybe she will take the initiative to design and let Thor be exiled to the earth in advance. The Queen of Asgard has never been a noob. Design a little bit for my son so that he can become better, understand what is the real king, and become more responsible and responsible. This is definitely true. Thinking of this, Sue Che knew how to increase her trust value. Asgard, Crystal Asgard within. Go down first. Looking at the maids serving her, Queen Frigga smiled softly and asked them to go to rest first. After the maids left, Frigga poured herself a cup of tea. The movements are still so elegant and gentle, but there seems to be a touch of sadness between the brows. Already more than 1,500 years old, Thor is still so impulsive and reckless. He successfully inherited his warlike husband Odin and inherited Asgard's martial arts character. But he didn't inherit his own thoughts. This is not allowed. A qualified general can be aggressive and impulsive, but a qualified king is absolutely not allowed to let emotions influence reason. The current Thor is not yet a qualified heir to the crown prince. However, I was reluctant to let him hang under the tree of life like my husband Odin back then and experience those pains and tribulations. Thinking of this, Queen Frigg picked up the teacup, smelled the unique fragrance of tea, and then blew a little. Well, the unique tea taste of the earth is really good. This made Frigga, who was a little sad in her heart, show a gentle smile. This was a gift that Loki brought back for himself when he thought he would like it when he went to Earth. I heard that this is the best drink from the east of the earth, and I will definitely like it. Facts have proved that I really like it very much. But Loki is too naughty. I heard that when he went to the earth, he turned into a man named D.B. Cooper and left an unsolved case for the earth. Fortunately, the Earth's supreme mage didn't make a move, otherwise Loki might not be able to come back. But when it comes to Loki, Frigga also has some headaches. Compared to him, Thor, Loki doesn't care about anything on the surface. But as a mother, adoptive mother, how could Frigga not know about the past 1,500 years? Loki has always been jealous of Thor. He is jealous that Thor has acquired Mjolnir. Jealous of Thor being favored by his own husband, Odin. He is like a child who lacks love. I want to work hard to prove that I am not worse than Thor. He is also worthy of being loved by his own husband, worthy of the status of Prince of Asgard, and worthy of the love of Asgard's people. Well, thinking of this, Frigga smiled helplessly. The husband has all eyes on Thor. This throws Loki off balance. Even if I want to make up for the lack of father's love and attention, I can't do it as a mother. After all, my family is the royal family of Asgard after all, not the common family. So, putting down the teacup, I saw a black gold diary on the table inadvertently from the corner of my eye. Looking at this black gold book that suddenly appeared. Although Queen Frigg didn't know what it was, why did it appear on her desk? However, his expression didn't change. Not even a hint of surprise. A long-time pampered life, coupled with the experience of being raised by witches in the past, let Frigga have long been calm about any sudden events. So, face this black gold diary that suddenly appeared. Frigga didn't get nervous immediately or call anyone. After a careful perception, I didn't find any danger in the bedroom. He picked up the teapot and poured himself another cup of clear tea. Since there is no danger, I didn't notice any invading enemy in front of me. Then Frigga thought it might not be a big deal. After all, some past experiences are far more treacherous than a black gold diary suddenly appearing on my desk. So, it's nothing. So, this is suffering for Su-Che. Chapter 62, here he is, a hot man. He is here. Here comes the classic scene, holding a cup of coffee in his hand. He looked at the two people sitting opposite him. Natasha Romanoff looked at Steve Rogers for a while, and Su-Che for a while. There was an emotion in her eyes that didn't fit her identity, and it was spreading constantly at this moment. It has to be said that the auras of these two people are very similar, even very similar. They are all so tall, slender, handsome, and tough. Moreover, there was a trace of melancholy in the eyes of these two people. The other eyebrow reveals indescribable vicissitudes. A child who seems to be full of confusion about the future and seems to be abandoned by the world, working hard but not knowing how to integrate into this world. One eye is full of stories, and it seems to see through all the vicissitudes of life in the mystery. God! Sitting together, these two people are simply human-shaped eye-catching machines, okay? He was tall and handsome, coupled with the charming and deep eyes full of stories. This is enough to make women involuntarily arouse their desire to explore. Heart is there. Suddenly two came. I'm afraid that from today on 17, there will be an endless stream of customers in this Teowalan cafe. And the main guests will definitely be women from the age of 16 to 40. You can't go wrong. That is, Natasha Romanoff did not come across from China. Otherwise, you will definitely feel emotional. In this small coffee shop, there are actually two crouching dragons and phoenix chicks hidden. How can he die? It's not just Natasha Romanoff who thinks so. Even Selena at the counter, her eyes are shining at this moment. Especially looking at the coffee shop, many female customers are secretly looking at the boss and his friends. Selena couldn't stop being excited. Oh my God, two handsome guys with melancholy temperament gathered in the coffee shop. After this, do you still have to worry about the business of the coffee shop? Just because of the appearance and temperament, I am afraid that many girls will come to line up every day. It's all money. How much money does this daily turnover make? As for your relationship with yourself? Harm, you can't say that. I am the store manager of Teo Wallen Cafe. Definitely have to care about the quality of the coffee shop business. And as a store manager, in addition to the fixed weekly salary, I also have a commission every month. Therefore, I naturally hope that the business of this coffee shop will be booming. The more the boss earns, the more he can earn. Well, regret it. It's just that the boss doesn't agree to put his picture up. Otherwise, relying on the good looks of the boss and the mysterious temperament that has gone through many vicissitudes and is full of stories, the turnover of the coffee shop can be doubled. If the boss and his equally melancholy friend can be seen, they're willing to post photos in a conspicuous place outside the coffee shop. Then Selena feels that the turnover of the coffee shop is confident that it will triple. It is a pity that such a good resource cannot be used. Well, another girl came over to strike up a conversation. He wanted to take one of Sue Che and Steve back to his bedroom and treasure it. Only Selena wanted to conscientiously post photos of the two of them outside to solicit business. Did you see? This is what a qualified store manager should do, instead of coveting the beauty of the boss. In the coffee shop, the location is close to the sun. By the way, don't both of you keep silent. Hold a coffee cup and look left and right. Eventually, Natasha Romanoff somewhat capitulated. Okay, my job is done. To be honest, I think Nick Fury's idea is really good, because the two of you are very similar in temperament and aura. I believe that the two of you will have a lot of common language. So, I won't bother you two. After speaking, Natasha Romanoff put down the coffee cup, then got up and left with a smile. Watch Natasha Romanoff leave. Steve Rogers, who had always been silent, laughed at himself, looking at the dazzling but gentle sunlight outside the window. Turning to Sue Che and smiling. Sorry, I don't know why Nick Fury asked her to send me to you. I asked her before I came here. You are not the so-called shield. So, I seem to be causing you trouble. It won't. Hearing Steve's polite words, Sue Che picked up the coffee and took a sip. I think you should also try this unsweetened hand-ground black coffee. Although the first drink is slightly sour and bitter, the aftertaste is very good after careful tasting. I'll just forget it. Facing Sue Che's invitation, Steve Rogers shook his head with a smile. Looking at the coffee in his hand, a trace of nostalgia flashed in his eyes. In the past, I once saw a person. In the name of a test, she fired a few shots at the shield in my hand, just when I thought the matter was over. But before the task was approaching, she brought me a cup of coffee. That's right, it's the unsweetened black coffee you mentioned. Then, amidst the smothered smile on my other friend's face, I drank it with my breath held. I still remember that feeling, so I don't want to try it again. Having said that, Steve Rogers raised his head, gently flicking the spoon in the coffee cup. You should know who I am. I think Natasha Romanoff should at least tell you who I am. Steve Rogers, who exists in the Memorial Hall and is known as a legendary hero who lives up to his reputation. Listening to Captain America's question, Sue Che smiled with an unchanged expression. Yeah, an old antique that exists in the Memorial Hall, or suing should always exist in the Memorial Hall, instead of opening his eyes and facing this strange world again. He turned his head and looked at the bustling and gorgeous city outside the window. In Steve Rogers' eyes, there was an undisguised sense of strangeness. Actually, I've been awake for days. It seemed as if he was confiding to Sue Che and also seemed to be talking to himself. Steve Rogers spoke very slowly. It's more like a bystander telling someone else's story. This world is very nice. There are more types of food, for 170 cars and high-rise buildings everywhere. There are many types of coffee, and mobile phones and computers are also very common. Even many diseases that were very difficult in our era are easy to solve in this era. Only, frowning slightly, Steve was silent for a moment, but didn't know what to say. Finally, he turned his head to look at Suche and asked seriously, "Are you a psychiatrist?" Nick Fury said I needed a psychiatrist, and then asked that Ms. Natasha Romanoff to send me to you. But I feel that you are not a psychiatrist. My intuition has always been very accurate. I can always feel that kind of feeling in you. That is, that feeling just like me. It's like wandering outside this world, not belonging to the people who should appear in this era. Sorry, I don't know how to describe this feeling. As the immortal legendary among the legendaries, Steve Rogers is very observant. Therefore, he could easily get the very young-looking Suche in front of him. I noticed that kind of aura that was not similar to my own at the moment, even very consistent. It was as if he was of the same kind as himself, and did not belong to this world. But he wasn't sure either. After all, his own experience is already bizarre enough. How could there be someone like me who doesn't belong to this era? Although I also hope to have a similar kind, so that I don't seem so lonely. But this is ridiculous. Chapter 63 Nick Fury. It's over. Captain America was stolen by Suche. 3 days later, by the river in the suburbs of New York. For fishing, you have to make a nest first. Suche has the perfect version of water control ability. Facing the calm river in front of you, you can easily feel the number of fish in the water. However, if you use ability for things like fishing, you will lose a lot of fun. After all, if you just want to catch fish, even Suche doesn't need a fishing rod. Harvesting can get more than detonator frying fish. But you didn't seem to say that the day before yesterday, sitting next to Suche with a fishing rod. Steve Rogers looked at the empty fishing baskets of the two and said with a smile, I always feel that fishing, as an activity, really has the novice protection period you mentioned. Look, you and I came fishing for the first time the day before yesterday. I caught 7 in one afternoon, and you also caught pung. Each of us caught 3 fish yesterday. But today, it has been more than 2 hours, and now I haven't caught a single fish. Listening to Steve's words, Suche shrugged his shoulders. Didn't take advantage of ability to use the current to push the school of fish to his side. Instead, he quietly held the fishing rod and waited for the fish to take the bait. That's what fishing is like. Only by calming down can you feel the joy of fishing. Turning to look at Steve, Suche smiled and said, Anyway, what people like us need most is time. Hearing what Suche said, Steve nodded. Indeed, for people like us, the most important thing is time. But it's hard to imagine that there are freaks like the two of us in the same world. Honestly, I'm grateful. Sue. Looking at Suche, Steve took a deep breath, but the melancholy in his eyes was slowly dissipating. After knowing that you were not from this world, I felt a lot more at ease. At least, that feeling is like losing your way in this strange world. You can only be alone, and when you walk down the fog, you suddenly find an organization. That sense of security at least allows me to sleep very peacefully every night. It's really not easy. But then again, the reason Nick Fury asked Natasha Romanoff to send me to you. It is estimated that although he does not know that you are from a parallel world, I think he should be very similar to you in the confused and out-of-place look he saw from me. That's why I think that I will calm down slowly by your side, and then gradually integrate into this new world. Speaking of this, Steve looked at Suche with a serious and sincere expression. But don't worry, I promise I won't tell this secret to anyone else. Listening to Steve's tone of gratitude and sincerity, Suche was silent for a moment, then said with a hearty smile, Actually, a secret that has been kept in my heart for a long time will become a burden instead. Steve, as you said, after you woke up from the freeze, you couldn't accept the world for a while. The former lovers are gone, and the former teammates are all gone. There is not even a familiar person. I feel confused and unable to integrate into this world. 17, but who isn't? My world was destroyed, and I changed from a person who once had everything to a wanderer who had nothing and was abandoned by the world. He raised his eyes and looked at the sparkling but unusually calm lake in front of him. Steve, You said that my appearance made you feel that you are not alone in this world. In fact, everyone is the same. Also, I'm very happy. Well, it's really nasty and embarrassing to say this. I always feel PD off. But in fact, what Suche said was all sincerity. If not alone, who would like to sit in a coffee shop for a whole morning? And when Nick Fury arranged for Natasha Romanoff, with Steve Rogers, to come, Suche knew that he absolutely couldn't refuse. Whether it's because Steve Rogers just woke up from the ice at this moment, feeling abandoned by the world. My teammate in this parallel world can't just watch him confused. Or what I wrote in my diary. If you push Steve Rogers out at this time, then this is contrary to the character set that I maintain. And Nick Fury is also out of this consideration, worried that he will leave this world in the future. That's why Steve Rogers was sent over. On the one hand, it allows Steve to quickly integrate into this world, at least to quickly adapt to life in this world. On the other hand, I also want to deepen my bond with this world. One day in the future, I will suddenly leave this world. But speaking of it, in fact, the appearance of Steve Rogers, it really relieved a certain part of Suche's psychological pressure. Let yourself save a lot of lonely situations. It was written in the diary that the parallel world he was in was destroyed. It's just to deceive the holder of the black gold diary and then get the ability truth. But actually, that's right, I crossed over by myself, traveled into this familiar and strange world. When I dream back to midnight, why don't I miss the world I am in? Wanderers who have been away from home for a long time will miss their hometown. So, what about yourself who can't go back? Nick Fury thinks he's Steve Rogers' medicine. But Steve, this guy who has been abandoned by the world for nearly 70 years, it may not be your own good medicine. Salvation is often mutual. At least that's how Suche sees it. However, Nick Fury doesn't think so. At this moment, Nick Fury feels a bit of a headache, especially after hearing Hill report that Steve Rogers turned down joining S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury's already dark face is even darker now. As for Steve Rogers being able to recover from the ice, Nick Fury is still having fun. At least, Nick Fury was of great use to Steve's arrangements. Can Result take a look at what Steve and Suche have done during these 3 days? Early in the morning, Steve would knock on Suche's door and invite him to go for a run together. Then the two of them ran around the lakeside of the monument, running more than 10 miles almost every morning. After the run, the two went home to take showers and then went out for breakfast together. TSK. It is said that the apartment for Steve is arranged next to Suche's single-family apartment. Is it for the convenience of the two of you to drop by? Even if it's for the convenience of visiting, we can't do everything together from morning to night. It's okay to spend the morning at Teo Wallen Cafe after breakfast. In the afternoon, we simply went fishing together. Or the two of you could just sleep together at night, Nuo Wang Zhao, so I can get back the apartment I bought for Steve and save a lot of money. Okay, the two people have been in contact for a long time, and they can gradually eliminate each other's strangeness about this world. This is a good thing. But when he thought that Suche didn't trust SHIELD, Nick Fury felt that he had made a mistake. After all, not even he thought of it. It's only been 3 days, and Steve flatly refused to join SHIELD. Only 3 days. Do you want it so fast? You must know when he was revived from the ice. I had high hopes for him and asked him to join SHIELD to lead the SHIELD action group. I can also relax myself and secretly investigate the internal affairs of S.H.I.E.L.D. The result is good now, and I haven't waited for myself to take action. In the end, I was very optimistic about Steve, whom I trusted, so I was completely stolen by Suche. Depend on Chapter 64 Nick Fury's Troubles, Diary Update. It's been almost a week. Look at the display on the system. Asgard's queen, Frigga, still has 0 trust at the moment. What does this mean? This means that it has been a week, and the queen is still flipping through the black gold diary that suddenly appeared in her field of vision. It really is. Shook his head. Forget it. People didn't see it, and I couldn't do anything about it. I can't fly to Asgard and force Frigga to read this black gold diary. Open the system compilation page and continue to write the next diary. S.H.I.E.L.D. morning run, breakfast, coffee, fishing. Looking at the records over and over again, Nick Fury put down the messages that the agents reported to him. Forget it. Think of it as a temporary vacation for Steve Rogers, the legendary hero. After all, it hasn't been long since he just recovered from the ice. Let Su-Che lead him into this world first. Just in time, two people can slowly deepen their bond. Su-Che, who is also provincial, has no emotion for this world and will choose to leave in the future. Bang, bang, bang. Hearing the knock on the door, Nick Fury raised his head and took a look at 873. He found that Alexander Pierce was standing at the door at the moment, looking at himself with a smile on his face. "Why are you so free to come to my office today?" Putting down the report in his hand, Nick Fury looked at Pierce, who came over and sat opposite him, and asked. Although, because of that black gold diary, Nick Fury already had some doubts about Alexander the Dummy. Alexander Pierce. However, on the surface, it is necessary to remain calm. Well, Alex the Fool was right. If he is HYDRA, he is a fool for sticking with that stupid goal. If he wasn't Hydra, then during his time as S.H.I.E.L.D. director, let Hydra infiltrate S.H.I.E.L.D. This alone is enough to prove that he is Alex's idiot. It's nothing. Just move your legs up and down the stairs. Looking at Nick Fury, Alexander Pierce sat across his desk and laughed. After all, being active at my age is good. Maybe it will last a few more years because of this. Then you have to take good care of your body. Hearing what Pierce said, Nick Fury joked. If you are in poor health, and step down as SHIELD Secretary General, how can I apply for funding from the World Security Council? Come on, Nick. Smiling and waving his hands, Alexander Pierce said, Can't he help you apply? That's not the same. And who cares if the application for funding is more? After exchanging greetings with a smile, Alexander Pierce pretended to inadvertently ask, by the way, what happened to our legendary hero, Steve Rogers, who came back from the ice? You know, if he can join our SHIELD, then the cohesion and strength of our SHIELD will be greatly improved. After all, the undead, legendary hero is no joke. Listening to Pierce pretending to ask casually, Nick Fury handed him the report on the table. You can read it yourself. Anyway, the more I read it, the more helpless I become. Yep, Steve Rogers coming back from the ice. It is impossible to hide Alexander Pierce, the Secretary General of S.H.I.E.L.D. If such a big matter can be hidden from him, then SHIELD will not be infiltrated by Hydra forces. So from the beginning, Nick Fury didn't want to hide him. After receiving the report from Nick Fury, Alexander Pierce glanced at it. Drinking coffee, fishing? It's quite leisurely. Who said it wasn't? Spreading his hands, pretending to be helpless. Pierce, you must know that I valued Steve Rogers very much back then. I thought he could join our SHIELD and become the leader of the SHIELD Action Group. In the end, he rejected my proposal. According to him, he has devoted 70 years to this world. Right now, he just wants to live the life of the common people. Then what do you think? Putting down the report, Pierce laughed and said, And that's Su-Che who was with him? Why haven't I heard of such a character? What else can I think? Seeing Pierce looking at himself with a smile, Nick Fury said softly, Forget it anyway. For the sake of this world, he has been asleep for more than 70 years, and he has missed too much of his life. Then now, since he has made a choice, it's good that we respect his personal wishes. As for Su-Che looking at Pierce, Nick Fury said casually, It's a psychiatrist. You know, Steve Rogers, the captain of Legendary, was unwilling to cooperate with the psychiatrist we photographed for him. Or he has always had a deep resistance to SHIELD, thinking that SHIELD will interfere with his new life when he comes back to life. So, I used a small method to let him find a psychologist named Su-Che by himself. It's his own choice to find a psychiatrist he's willing to associate with, and it's his personal choice, so it has nothing to do with us S.H.I.E.L.D. anyway. How can you do it without seeing a psychiatrist? Well, the information on Su-Che. When Nick Fury sent Steve Rogers to him, even if Su-Che's personal information is changed, at least when interested people want to investigate Su-Che's profile, you will find that he is a psychiatrist from Dongfang Longhua and the owner of Teowalan Cafe. The information shows that he is 19 years old. Doesn't that make him a genius? Why didn't you work in a professional psychological clinic but open a coffee shop by yourself? Blind, it doesn't matter. Those who investigate him will make up their own minds. If you don't want to make up your mind, if you want to dig deeper, you will see a very reasonable resume with details about discrimination. After hearing Nick Fury say that Suche is just a psychiatrist and that Steve Rogers was unwilling, even resisting, to join S.H.I.E.L.D., Alexander Pierce laughed. It's a shame. After all, he's Steve Rogers. Well, what Nick Fury said about Suche is similar to what he asked Hydra to investigate. And Alexander Pierce didn't believe Nick Fury would lie to himself. After all, he is just a one-eyed joker who is full of trust in himself and can be fooled by himself at any time. After chatting for a while, Pierce smiled and got up to leave. Watching him leave his office, Mayor Foxia, who was still smiling, became serious. This guy, Pierce, is getting more and more suspicious. Put your eyes on the black gold diary on the table. Anyway, Pierce can't see it. This is something he has tried. So Nick Fury didn't pay much attention. Habitually flipping through the diary, I found out that this black gold diary has started to be updated again. Chapter 65, what? Tony is dying? Nick Fury is intimidated. Inertia closed the door of the office and pressed the button of the shield under the desk. Nick Fury picked up the diary and read it. For a week, Steve's apparent mood has stabilized. Although there was still a trace of melancholy in the eyes, it dissipated a lot compared to the beginning. During these 7 days, the two of us went for a morning jog in the morning, and after taking a shower, we went to have breakfast together. The morning time is spent in the coffee shop, and in the afternoon I go fishing by the river. The pace of life this week is very slow, and it may not be long before Steve can accept all the current realities. At least in his words, in the last week, I was able to fall asleep at night. Well, actually, the real reason why he can accept the reality and feel at ease. Because I told him that I am actually not a person from this world. Many things are like this, not suffering from few, but suffering from inequality. So when a person who is abandoned by the world meets another person who is abandoned by the world, there will always be comfort in his heart. He is me too. Don't worry about scarcity, but inequality. What does this sentence mean? Looking at the contents recorded in the diary, Wanda raised her head and asked Natasha Romanoff. This is a very famous saying in Dongfang Huagua. Facing Wanda's question, Natasha Romanoff explained with a smile. The original text of this sentence should be, I heard that those who have a country and a family do not suffer from poverty, but from inequality, and do not suffer from poverty, but from anxiety. Gai Jun Wu poor harmonious without widows, safe without leaning. Well, to give the simplest example, it's like distributing candy to a few children. If everyone had the same amount, then everyone would be very happy. But if you give one kid 3 candies and the other kid 5, then the kid who gets 3 pieces of candy will have unbalanced emotions in his heart. Hearing Natasha Romanoff's explanation, Wanda nodded lightly. I see. But Natasha Romanoff, how do you know this knowledge? Looking at Wanda with a very sincere, questioning look, Natasha Romanoff was silent for a while, then put her arms around Wanda and said, When I received special training in the Red House, in those years we not only had to learn a lot of chemistry, firearms, makeup, concealment, and other necessary skills for an agent. It is even more important to learn some knowledge about various countries, because only in this way can we better integrate into some local environments and complete some tasks more smoothly. Obviously, Natasha Romanoff doesn't want to say anything more when it comes to the Red House organization, so he changed the subject and said with a smile, However, it seems that Sue should write the diary in Chinese, but what we see should be the literal translation of the Black Gold Diary. I didn't expect the Black Gold Diary to have the function of literal translation. At the beginning, I thought Sue wrote the diary in English. Hearing that Natasha Romanoff obviously changed the subject, she didn't want to continue talking about the Red House. Wanda smiled sweetly at her, then continued to read the diary. It's just that the white and delicate hand gently held Natasha Romanoff's hand. Everyone has a past that they don't want to talk about. Wanda knew this very early on. Feeling the warmth of Wanda's hand, Natasha Romanoff smiled silently. She knew that this was Wanda silently trying to comfort herself. Steve's mood is getting more and more stable, and it seems to have formed a habit. Almost every morning, I come running to knock on the door of my apartment, but that's okay. At least I have forgotten how long I haven't gotten up early. When I used to live with my wife, Wanda, we always hugged each other and stayed in bed until 7:30 in the morning. What? Seeing that he was mentioned, he still talked about how he hugged each other in bed in the morning. Wanda suddenly felt as if her cheeks were burned. I glanced at Natasha Romanoff quietly and found that Natasha Romanoff looked as usual. Not even half a sneer. Wanda breathed a sigh of relief. 14 or 15 is the time to save face. This kind of thing is too embarrassing. Well, not myself. It's me in a parallel world. Constantly comforted myself in my heart. Just looking at the words below, Wang Momo's mouth still rose. It's Wanda's birthday in a few days. Natasha Romanoff has already invited me. Maybe I should prepare birthday gifts in advance. Pietro's birthday gift is a good choice. Just buy him a large game console and a wearable basketball. As for flowers, Wanda's birthday present should be carefully prepared. Look at preparing to prepare gifts for yourself with your heart. The corners of Wanda's mouth rose slightly. Like ever since my parents passed away, it's been a long time since I received a birthday present. When I mentioned Natasha Romanoff, I suddenly thought of something. In my parallel universe, after Tony Stark was kidnapped and returned, Nick Fury sent Phil Coulson to ask Tony what happened and what happened to the armor. Using the time when Pepper Potts became the CEO of Stark Industries, Natasha Romanoff became Tony's assistant. It is for this reason that Nick Fury knew that Tony Stark was about to die from palladium poisoning. But now, Tony Stark is back, and Pepper has also met Natasha Romanoff more than once at the Teowalan Cafe. So what's next? Nick Fury will send someone to be Tony Stark's assistant to investigate this matter? But since Tony Stark held a press conference and announced the closure of the weapons manufacturing department, according to People, it seems that no one from SHIELD came to ask about Tony's kidnapping. Nick Fury is not curious about how Tony escaped. If he wasn't curious, then Tony might be dead. Seeing this in the diary, Nick Fury's expression suddenly became serious. Looking at what was written in the front of the diary, I thought I was just expressing my recent mood. Unexpectedly, I actually saw the black gold diary saying that Tony Stark was about to die. This can't help but make Nick Fury pay attention. Forget it anyway. Tony hasn't investigated it yet. The person who instigated the kidnapping of him is Obadiah Stan, whom he trusts the most and even treats as an uncle. Wait until he investigates. And then after the battle with Obadiah Stan's Iron Overlord wearing the Mark armor is over. If Nick Fury doesn't make a move again, then I can only pretend to accidentally find out about Tony Stark and tell Natasha Romanoff. Anyway, according to People, Tony has been looking for someone to inquire about what People said about me, Mr. Superman. 1. Chapter 66. Tony's mentality has collapsed. Suche, UFK me. For Tony Stark, People is always the best breakthrough. Although, the two of them are not together at the moment. But Tony Stark could be trusted at the moment, especially after the kidnapping thing. Only People was left. Therefore, he absolutely does not allow anyone to approach People with a sorry attitude. Definitely, let alone allow People to be snatched away by others. Either that damn Mr. Superman or Batman. Not even Joker. So, when Tony Stark found the coffee shop here, Suche was not surprised at all. On the other hand, Steve on the side looked at Tony with something wrong. Hey man, even though I'm the greatest genius of this century, I don't like men, and men can't get a penny from me based on their looks. So don't look at me like that. Thank you. Facing Steve's gaze, Tony Stark subconsciously leaned aside. Although the guy in front of him, Tony Stark always felt very familiar. It seems like I've seen it somewhere. But the look in his eyes made me feel a little uncomfortable. Please, what's the matter with a man looking at himself with that kind of burning eyes? Could it be that my charm has become bigger again, 313, and I can even attract men? Forget it, never mind. I'm here to do business today. I've taken a fancy to your coffee shop. Tell me, how much money are you willing to transfer to me? Looking at Suche, Tony Stark said with a wealthy and powerful face. He didn't say a word about People, and he didn't tell Suche to stay away from People. Based on this alone, Suche sensed something was wrong. Since obtaining the Constitution, which is 10 times the peak physical fitness of ordinary people, Suche found that even his own thinking became faster. A hand quietly dialed a number under the table, then pretending to be inadvertently picked up the coffee and took a sip. Then he turned his head to Steve and asked with a smile, Like it? Listening to Suche asking himself, Steve knew that what he was asking was whether the Tony Stark in front of him looked like his father, Howard Stark back then. But although he looks very similar, he wasn't like that back then. Disgusting, that's pretty much what it means. I think arrogant is a better word, though. Hey, hey, I said there is still a living person here. Can you two respect me? I'm Tony Stark. Speaking of this, Tony Stark sneered. There have been many people who have said that I am arrogant over the years. Who cares about you two guys? Let's talk about how much money you are willing to transfer this coffee shop. Looking at Suche, Tony Stark said proudly, after thinking about it, this may be money that you will never earn in your life, so I allow you to say a little more. Are you recording and videoing, right? Seeing Tony deliberately pretending to be particularly arrogant, he looks like a nouveau riche. Suche glanced at Tony and then said softly, you deliberately put on such a gesture to provoke me, and then deliberately set a trap to make me speak out an astronomical figure. In this way, you can save this recording and video recording. Although this cannot be used as evidence, after all, according to the law here, as long as the buyer and seller reach an agreement, and it is completely voluntary, it is not considered extortion. However, the evidence you have preserved is not intended to sue me, but to show it to other people, so that other people will think that I am a greedy guy, right? Seeing Tony Stark's expression paused because of his words, then put away the arrogant, and disgusting expression that he deliberately put on just now. Suche nodded. It seems that I am right. Then let me guess. Who do you want to give this audio and video recording to? And who do you want to let me see clearly my real face? Well, there are many people you Tony Stark would care about, but it's obviously a woman. There are very few women I have contacted who are related to you and who can make you care deeply. If there is no accident, it should be that Ms. Pay Potts. Ar successe analysis. Tony Stark's expression also returned to normal. Obviously, the guy in front of him, who was called Mr. Superman by Pepper, is not easy to deal with. That's right, the Mr. Superman that Pepper said was right. I really think so. Even audio and video recordings are ready. As long as this guy dares to open his mouth like a lion, then I dare to fulfill him. Anyway, spend some money to let Payboy get to know him again. The real appearance of Mr. Superman, who she said is very caring and can understand and comfort others, is also quite good. In the end, he didn't expect to be guessed by him. TSK. If only they were as stupid as the guys who flew to the Middle East in their armor a few days ago to blow up the weapons produced by the Stark industry. He took a sip of the coffee in front of him. Tony Stark nodded approvingly. The coffee is really good, but I don't like you guy. So let's say, what exactly do you want to stay away from Peepo? I don't believe that you have no other purpose in contacting Peepo. Are you so sure that I approached Ms. Pepper Potts with ill intentions? Seeing Tony's serious look, Ian deliberately teased him. Definitely. Looking at Suche with certainty, Tony Stark smiled confidently. I don't believe that you have no other purpose in contacting Peepo. After all, Pepper called you Mr. Superman, and you called Pepper Pepper. Damn it, the age gap between the two of you is here. Although I admit that you are as handsome as the big fool next to you, and you have a temperament that is extremely attractive to women, but I don't believe that you touch Pay before Tony Stark finished speaking. Suche picked up the phone and said with a smile, Peepo, did you hear what Mr. Tony Stark said? Water. The moment Suche took out his phone, Tony Stark stared at Suche with wide eyes. A bad premonition suddenly rose in my heart. Sure enough, when he heard him call Payboth on the other end of the phone, Tony's heart skipped a beat. Depend on, when I came here, I didn't PS him off, but I was PD off by him. Sorry, Sue, I didn't expect this to happen. On the other end of the phone, Pepper Potts was always listening with his mobile phone. He apologized to Suche with a very sincere tone. I don't know, Tony left the laboratory early in the morning, and he actually went to find you. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience this has caused you. For Tony Stark investigating his friends and wanting to use money to get his friends to leave. Pepper thinks this fits Tony Stark, although he was annoyed at privately denying himself the right to make friends. But she knew that she shouldn't. At least she couldn't let Tony lose face outside. So Peepo just expressed his apology to Suche, but he didn't lose his temper with Tony or anything like that. I have to say, this is a very nice, caring way of dealing with it. However, Tony's eyes froze at this moment, even a little flustered. But it reflects Tony's extremely real psychological activities at the moment. It's okay, I can understand. After all, this is also a kind of concern that Mr. Stark has for you. Although this kind of concern has surpassed the concern of the boss for the assistant. But it also shows that the relationship between the two of you is really good. Well, very green tea after a few words. Suche smiled and hung up the phone. Damn it, you actually bully me. Looking at Suche, Tony Stark didn't know whether to express anger or regret. In the end, he leaned on the chair and looked at Suche speechlessly. The quality of coffee is so good. Can't your character be like coffee, Mr. Stark? Don't you think I'm just using your methods against you? Hearing Suche's ridicule, Tony Stark was silent for a while. He didn't know what to say. After all, the guy in front of him just used his own method and then returned it to himself. If you say that he is shameless and has a bad character, wouldn't you be scolding yourself? After a short silence, Tony Stark suddenly picked up the coffee on the table and drank it down. Immediately, he glanced at Suche angrily and then left directly. Thinking about going back, maybe Peepo would pretend to be doing nothing again and then act businesslike. Tony had a headache because that's the sign Peepo is really angry. However, it is really sad to leave like this. Gotta find some places to go. Walking to the door, this imposing billionaire, known as the greatest genius of this century, Tony Stark, the owner of Stark Industries, made a decision that did not conform to his status. That is, I will never pay for the cup of coffee I just drank. No way, that's childish enough. Watching Tony leave angrily, Steve smiled at Suche. But this 5.7 point is really similar to Howard. But what's the matter with him and Peepo? Are they boyfriend and girlfriend? Listening to Steve's inquiry, Suche smiled while holding his coffee. There are two of them. One is emotionally slow, and the other is worried about being together because of status issues. Others will think that she is going for Tony's money and status. So it's all hiding their emotions from each other. For two people like this, there must be some external catalyst. So I understand, just like me and Peggy back then. Picking up the coffee and taking a sip, Steve looked at Suche and said with a smile, "Actually, there are people from SHILD who are monitoring me all the time. I know they mean well. So yesterday, I found the person who watched me and asked him to help me get some good nesting fish feed. Calculate the time. They have already put the fish material in the place where we often fish. Walk. Well, let's go." Thanks to the three brothers Abandoned World, Devil King CWK, Supreme for their rewards. Thanks to Brother Robert for the reminder and monthly pass. The background information seems to have collapsed, and I feel that a lot of data has been lost. There are reminders and updates. I didn't see that the big guy voted for the monthly pass, so I'm very, very sorry if I missed it. Chapter 67, Another Change. Tony's emotions are complicated. 3 days later, the more I look at you, the more familiar you feel. He folded his arms and looked at Steve Rogers sitting opposite him. Holding the coffee, Tony Stark looked cynical. It's not good for you to say that you look like someone. You have to be like that annoying guy. I don't know who you're talking about. He looked at himself with Tony Stark's playful eyes. Steve Rogers laughed. Then he turned his head and looked at Suche. You know, who is he talking about? I don't know. Maybe the brain circuit of a genius is different from that of us common people. Otherwise, after being trapped on the first day, one after another would come here, almost every day. And he chose to sit across from us. Facing Steve's smile, Suche said who knew that the brain circuit of this genius was different from that of common people. Come on, man. You think I can't find out who you are? Taking off his sunglasses and putting them on the table, Tony Stark looked at the two of them and said, Steve Rogers, a guy who has disappeared and been frozen for nearly 70 years. How about it? The old record player. Can it continue to play records now? Do you feel that the new world is full of computers and mobile phone speakers that can play music at any time? So your record player can't continue to work? I heard from 17 that the two of you have been fishing together every day recently. Wow, this kind of comfortable life may make you feel calm. After all, this world no longer needs an antique to be placed anywhere. Maybe in addition to fishing, you should also put on your status symbol blue uniform and do aerobics for exercise. After all, fish have great strength in the water. I am worried that your old body will not be able to pull the fish out of the water. Listening to Tony Stark speak very unflattering words in a very fast tone, Steve Rogers was silent for a while with his cup of coffee. So, is this the evil fruit you so-called planted by yourself? Looking at Suche, Steve Rogers laughed at himself. Although this matter has nothing to do with me directly. But I think it must have hurt him deeply when Howard indirectly used my deeds for comparison. Otherwise, he wouldn't have such a big negative energy towards me. Depend on. Hearing Steve's words, Tony Stark shook his hands. Come on, you think too much of yourself? Who am I? I'm Tony Stark. I can make circuit boards at the age of 4, and I can make circuit boards at the age of 6. Get the engine out. I'm the greatest genius and billionaire of this century. Will I be hurt because of you? That seems to be true. Seeing Steve mentioning Howard, Tony was obviously a bit defensive, but he still pretended to be indifferent. Suche nodded, agreeing with Steve Rogers' words. Okay, let's not talk about this antique record player. How about you? Looking at Suche, Tony Stark put down his coffee cup and asked, what ability do you have? I can't believe that this old record player will stay with a common person every day. I've had both of you analyzed by JRVS, and I've determined that neither of you are common. Confront Tony Stark's curiosity. Suche gestured towards the outside. Instead of caring about me, you might as well care about your Stark Industry. No, your Stark Industries CEO, Obadiah Stine, is being taken away. Water. Hearing Suche's words, Tony Stark subconsciously turned his head and looked out the window. Opposite the Teowallen Cafe, under the Stark Industrial Building, some people who obviously look like the FBI are dragging Obadiah Stine, who is obviously struggling, into the car, damn it. Seeing this scene, Tony Stark frowned, then got up and walked out of the coffee shop. Obviously, he just asked Peepo and wanted her to help confirm it in Obadiah Stine's office. Regarding his being attacked and kidnapped, was it planned by Obadiah Stine? Or to reveal the news of his actions? Why haven't we waited for Peepo to send the news of starting the investigation? Obadiah Stine was taken by this group? Know why you came to this coffee shop. One of its purposes is, in case Peepo is discovered while investigating the news, or when there is some danger to press the button in your hand. Then Tony Stark felt that he was sure and asked Steve Rogers, who had just been complained about by himself, to help. After all, according to what the old man said about Steve Rogers' character, and combined with JRVSS analysis based on his past deeds, no matter what kind of complaints he suffered from himself. But when it was time for him to help, he would never choose to ignore it. In addition, although Suche doesn't know what ability he has, he is obviously not from common. And he and Pepper are still friends, damn Mr. Superman. Then just Pepper pushes the dangerous button. I can immediately take the two of them to rush over to support as soon as possible. As a result, before Peepo pressed the button symbolizing start, there was no warning about danger. This guy Obadiah Stine was actually taken away by this group of people? What happened? Could it be that my guess is true, that Obadiah Stine is really the mastermind who kidnapped him? Go outside and watch the guys stuff Obadiah Stine into the car. Tony Stark stepped forward immediately. Hey, which department are you from? Why are you arresting the CEO of Stark Industries? Well, often pretending to be ignorant is the only way to get the information you want. As for danger? Come on, didn't you see the two guys sitting by the window in the opposite Teowallen Cafe looking at you? If this group of people were attackers, and they could take themselves away in the hands of these two annoying guys, then Tony Stark will definitely accept his fate. Damn. Which kidnapper broke into Stark Industry in the 370th day of Dubai and kidnapped the CEO of Stark Industry? Clearly, this is the official one. Mr. Tony Stark, we are the FBI. He took out his ID and showed it to Tony. Then the leading man in the black suit said, after our investigation, we found that the mastermind behind the kidnapping of you, Mr. Stark, 3 months ago was this Obadiah Stine who was arrested by us. Mr. Stark, a copy of the results of our interrogation will be sent to you for your records later. But for now, please don't get in the way of our work. Listen to this FBI agent. Although Tony Stark was already prepared in his heart, he looked at Obadiah Stine, who had been pushed into the car. For a while, it still felt a little unacceptable. Although I asked Paywood to help investigate, it was because I had doubts in my heart. But why doesn't Tony Stark hope that his guess is wrong? After all, Obadiah Stine has been helping take care of his business with Stark Industries since the death of his father and his own mother. He even regarded him as an uncle himself. But now, Get out of the way and watch Obadiah Stane being taken away by the FBI. All of a sudden, Tony Stark felt that his emotions were very complicated. Chapter 68, The Ninth Diary, Thor, My Cruel Mother. Regarding the early arrest of Obadiah Stane, if there is no shadow of Nick Fury in it, then even if you kill Suche, you won't believe it. I wrote in my diary that Obadiah Stane was the mastermind who planned to attack Tony Stark. I also wrote about Tony Stark dying from palladium poisoning. If Nick Fury doesn't do anything after seeing it, then Suche will definitely go to SHIELD to open his head and see if there is any water in it. However, Suche didn't pay much attention to the matter of Obadiah Stane's arrest. What really caught Suche's attention was that the trust value of the Queen of Asgard, Frigga, finally fluctuated, although the trust value is only a simple 10% now. But this shows that after waiting for half a month, that Queen Frigg is finally willing to open this black gold diary. It's really not easy. If the system randomly selects Steve, then maybe I have already maxed out my trust value. Looking at the display on the system, Queen Frigga's trust value fluctuated. Suche opened the diary writing page and started to brush her trust value. Well, Nick Fury can't be missed either. It's already 73%. Strive to pull Nick Fury's trust value to over 90 within 5 diaries. Looks like it's a bit difficult. It is estimated that if Frigga's trust value reaches 90%, Nick Fury's trust value will not reach 90%. Bah! Old BD. Asgard within Asgard. Just put the vase there, looking at the flowers picked by the maid from the garden. Queen Frigg smiled and motioned for the maids to put flowers on the balcony. Wait until all the maids have retreated. Then Queen Frigg walked to the window and gently sniffed the fragrance from the flowers. Then he picked up the black gold diary and read it. When she first saw this black gold diary, Queen Frigg didn't pay much attention to it, even if only he can see this black gold diary. But for Frigga, who has already seen more treacherous things, not a big deal. And I have never felt a trace of energy fluctuations in this black gold diary. Since it is not an artifact, there is no danger. Then show up until the last few days. Thor took Asgard's to Karen waxing to judgment and not after the rebellion. Frigga, who had nothing to do, was now in the mood and picked up the black gold diary to read. Although his son is reckless, impulsive, and warlike, he has Sif and Loki. It shouldn't be a big problem. When I first opened the diary, Frigga discovered that the text on the black gold diary actually came from the Warner Protoss, not the Acer Protoss. This made Frigga a little interested. After all, this journal appears in Asgard, then it should be the text of the Acer Protoss. Perhaps because he is a member of the Vanir Protoss, not a member of the Acer Protoss? And this black gold diary is related to the Warner Protoss? Frigga didn't find out until she opened the diary. It turned out that the owner of this black gold diary was an Earthling from a parallel world, not a member of the Warner Protoss that I guessed. The first entry in the diary mainly records the story of the destruction of his parallel universe. Definitely, Kong the Conqueror in the diary didn't know it himself. But the God group, I know it myself. This exists in the legendary, like sleeping among the planets. After waking up, the planet will be destroyed. After reading the first diary, the words full of despair are vividly displayed in front of Frigg. But gradually, through the following diaries, Frigg discovered the things described in the diary. Seems like it's all about the Earth. There are very few things about Asgard. The only thing relevant are the names of Thor and Loki. Then, if it happened on the Earth, why did this black gold diary appear in front of him? Although Odin had an agreement with the venerable ancient one mage on Earth back then, Asgard will never invade Earth. But other than that, Asgard doesn't seem to have much to do with Earth, although it is one of the 9 realms. Although Asgard's responsibility is to protect the safety of the 9 realms. However, this should not be the reason why the black gold diary appeared in front of him. If the owner of this diary is Jotunheim's Frost Titan, then I can still understand. After all, neither is the friction between Jotunheim and Asgard, or Loki, the son of Lauf, king of the Ice Titan. However, the owner of the black gold diary is Earth, Although I don't know why this black gold diary would choose me. And no one else, including Odin, can see it except yourself. But Frigga's mood didn't fluctuate in any way. Even accepted it very calmly, assuming that the reason is that I am the mother of Thor and Loki recorded in the diary. As for why not Odin, who knows? It's a pity that if the owner of the black gold diary came from another parallel universe, he didn't appear in front of him. Then I, who was raised by a witch, will definitely be able to see more things. Definitely, having a black gold diary that can see the future is already the luckiest thing. If you ask for too much, I am afraid that even the Tree of Life will not pay attention. But see the end of the first diary, after seeing the names of Thor and Loki. Only then did Frigg know. It turns out that in the parallel world of the owner of the black gold diary, Thor and Loki are the superheroes of the Earth. Saved the opponent countless times, and finally joined the superheroes of the Earth to fight against the Conqueror Kong and the gods. Only later, they failed, finally fought to the death. Well, the first diary accounted for Loki and Hill, but it didn't write that he was a villain at first. It is only stated that they fought against Kong, the Conqueror, and the Celestial group together. So Frigga comes naturally. It is considered that Loki in the parallel world is also a member of superhero. Although it's hard to imagine this youngest son of mine will become a superhero. But when he thought of his two sons, they were all killed in battle. Frigga will inevitably feel a little heartache. Then I continued to look at the last few diaries, only to find that they were inside the last few diaries. Not much more is written about Thor and Loki. Through Hildam's eyes, Queen Frigg can indeed be sure that the black gold diary named Suche is the person, right now on Earth. But she didn't send anyone to bother her. On the one hand, although things in parallel universes are likely to happen in their universe as well, but I can't make more changes by myself. On the other hand, I don't want to cause the misunderstanding of the Earth's supreme mage Ancient One. After all, Suche from the parallel universe came to Earth in this universe. The supreme mage Ancient One didn't even show up, and even knew it through Hildam's eyes. That supreme mage was only at the moment when Suche came to Earth. I just glanced at him from time to time, but I didn't continue to pay attention. Then Frigga would naturally not send someone to bring that Suche back through Bifrost. I have nothing to do. Let the maid back down. Frigga stood by the window and picked up the black gold diary, ready to see if there was any update. She really wants to know what will happen to her two children in the parallel universe in the future. Perhaps this is also the future fate of the two children of this universe. Therefore, through the description in the black gold diary, maybe I can change the future of my two sons. It may even indirectly change the fate of this universe. Open the black gold diary. Frigga found that the 9th diary was finally updated. I hope, this time, I can write something about my two sons. Obadiah Stein was captured, although it was captured by a group of FBI, but I guess it should be related to S.H.I.E.L.D. Although in the original world, Tony and Obadiah Stein would have a fierce battle. But yes, this is a parallel world after all, and it is normal for small things to have some deviations. Even Steve came back from thawing ahead of time, so it shouldn't be a surprise that Obadiah Stan was caught. Since I came to this world, I have met Natasha Romanoff, Steve, Tony, the members of the first-generation Avengers Alliance, and I have also met Wanda and Pietro. Excluding these two young people who are about to turn 15, just short of meeting Dr. Banner, Barton, and Thor, Dr. Banner should still be on the run. And then, under the surveillance of S.H.I.E.L.D., he lived in seclusion in that small village. Hawkeye, Natasha Romanoff said he was on a mission. As for Thor, I don't know how long Thor's hammer will fall from the sky. After all, when the hammer fell from the sky, it symbolized that Thor was deprived of his divine power by Odin, the king of Asgard, and exiled to the earth. I saw that Thor was finally written in the diary. Queen Frigg's expression became slightly serious. It's just after seeing the hammer falling from the sky and Thor being banished to Earth. Queen Frigg was stunned for a few seconds. His son is highly valued by his husband, and even regarded as Li Qianzhou, Thor trained by Asgard's next god king. How could he be deprived of his divine power by himself, and then exiled to the earth? Thinking of this result, Queen Frigg, in fact, Frigga felt that if such a thing really happened, then it seems that there is no fuss. After all, according to Thor's aggressive and reckless character at the moment. Her husband deprived him of his divine power and exiled him to the earth to live the life of some common people. It is also very possible. Maybe it's like what I saw in the beginning of the diary. Thor became a common man on earth precisely because he was deprived of his divine power. That's why I will gradually grow up later and become a superhero full of responsibility and patience. A person's character can never be changed without experiencing something personally. This point, Frigg, is very clear. So, she was going to keep reading. See if there is any mention in the diary why Thor was deprived of his divine power by his husband and exiled to the earth. It's not that I want to stop, but I want to see if there is anything I could do to help with the exile of Thor. Even design it yourself, although this will make Thor suffer some hardships, if Thor can really grow up at this moment. In the future, he is qualified to become the qualified king of Asgard and provoke the burden of Asgard. Then Frigga doesn't mind personally planning the exile of Thor. So really only Loki picked it up. Chapter 69, poor Thor doesn't know. He has already been arranged. For us, Thor has always been a trustworthy friend. For the Earth, Thor is a trustworthy superhero. Although many things happen in the middle, he is still our partner. However, I still hope that the Mjolnir will fall from the sky as soon as possible, and Thor will be deprived of his divine power and become a common man and exiled to the earth. It's not that I can't wait to see the old man who used to live and die together and fight against the teammates who want to destroy the world and destroy the enemies of the universe. Instead, I hope that Thor, who is over 1,500 years old, can mature as soon as possible. The faster his character matures, the higher our chances of winning will be when this parallel world is in crisis of destruction in the future. Also, I don't want to see Thor's sad but helpless eyes when Asgard is destroyed and half of its people are slaughtered. I don't even want to see the picture of him dying in endless despair when the universe is destroyed. Shield taking a deep breath. Nick Fury had an extremely complicated expression at the moment. I don't know why when I saw this sentence. I hope this Thor, who is over 1,500 years old, can mature as soon as possible. Nick Fury always felt a little awkward. 1,500 years old. Lived for more than 1,500 years. Nope. Just like this, there are still people who are still immature at the age of more than 1,563. In Nick Fury's opinion, this is unimaginable. Even unreasonable. Okay? Just let a person on Earth live for more than 1,500 years. Then he will far exceed the common people in terms of character and experience. You know, the maximum lifespan of people on Earth is only over 100 years. But what about this big guy? According to Su Che, the guy who has lived for more than 1,500 years is still immature. So what has Thor been doing for more than 1,500 years? It is because he is too well protected and has not experienced the baptism and beating of wind and rain. So his character is immature. Or is it because of character originally? No matter because of the above problems, Nick Fury feels that living more than 1,500 years old is immature. Then no matter how strong his ability is, he cannot be trusted at all. Not to mention, as Su Che said, when faced with life and death, you are willing to surrender your back and entrust your life. Only now that Su Che is writing inside the diary, Thor will eventually become fully worthy of their trust. So does it mean that Thor was deprived of God's magic by the so-called God King Odin? After being exiled to the earth, it slowly began to mature? If a person wants to become mature, he must go through some things. It's just about the fact that Thor matured after he came to Earth. Is there any intervention by SHIELD? Regardless of which parallel world Sue is in, Thor matures with or without SHIELD's intervention. Anyway, Nick Fury decided, in order to let the Earth have one more helper, let the Avengers Alliance have one more superhero. Just like Sue said when that iconic hammer fell from the sky, the Thor of this universe was exiled to the Earth and became the common people. Then I must arrange several sets of plans for Thor. Don't dare to say anything else. Design a few stories. Let a guy who loses his divine power and becomes a common man grow up and mature as soon as possible. On its own, this should be perfectly fine. Start with emotion first. Then there is life and death. Finally woke up. In the middle, there is some love and hatred, life and death, etc. a series of packages. After these few sets, even people with childish personalities will grow up, although the process will be a little bit intense and hard. But for the sake of the planet, Nick Fury doesn't mind turning himself into a little composition expert. Now, Thor, who is judging on behalf of Asgard and launching a happy campaign against the disobedient rebels, didn't know he was being watched. Even the next thing after being exiled to the Earth. It's all been arranged by someone. Definitely. Thor doesn't even know the man who designed him. Looks like it's not bad, just Nick Fury. Even his most beloved mother, the gentle and kind Queen Frigg. They are all ready to personally design. Let their husband Odin deprive Thor of his divine power and banish him to the earth. No way. When I saw the Black Gold Diary, it said that Asgard would be destroyed and half of the people would be slaughtered. In the end, after Thor died in endless unwillingness, the Queen of Asgard seems to have appeared before her eyes when she was not married to Odin. One after another, the fearless warriors of the Warner Protoss charge forward. But the final result is a tragic and desperate scene of death. As the only Protoss in the Nine Realms, the Warner Protoss experienced several life and death battles between Bor and Kjur. There are not many left now. So, at this moment, myself as Queen of Asgard, the tragedy of the Warner Protoss is absolutely not allowed to happen to the people of Asgard. Perhaps it is really like what that Suche said. The sooner Thor matures, the future of Asgard and Earth, and even the Nine Realms, it will be more stable. What's more, Thor is the next king of Asgard. It is his responsibility to protect the Nine Realms and Asgard. As long as Thor can mature as soon as possible, he can become the qualified crown prince of Asgard as soon as possible. So even if the final result is that Asgard is still not immune. But at that time, Frigga was willing to believe and waited for the day when he entered the Soul Castle. Surely no one will blame him. Thinking of this, Frigga continued to read the diary. After reading this diary, I plan to go to my husband Odin to discuss it. Odin, the God King of Asgard. You also don't want to see our future king of Asgard, an arrogant, immature, and warlike person. Wanda and Pietro's birthday presents are ready. My Scarlet Witch will love this birthday gift. But these days, when fishing with Steve, he always mentions things 70 years ago, intentionally or unintentionally. Every time I mention it, my eyes are filled with disappointment. However, I know that he is not sad because he feels that he cannot integrate into this brand new world. Instead, he misses the girl who once belonged to him. Okay, maybe I'm going to give Nick Fury a call. As a friend, there are some things that you can never pretend you didn't see. Definitely, the premise is that he has made up his mind. Otherwise, I can't imagine how he should face it and owe the girl who was 70 years late for the dance. Okay, as I write this, I'm also a little homesick. Unfortunately, Steve still has a chance to find her. But I am in this world. Only a house, no home. Chapter 70, The World-Shattering Birthday Party. Even Captain America is confused. Welcome to Wanda and Pietro's birthday party. Opening the door, he looked at Suche and Steve, who had been invited and were already standing at the door. Natasha Romanoff smiled and invited the two people in and said, "Thank you for coming. But I guess that the two of you would come together. After all, you two are inseparable these days." When Nick Fury talked about this matter, it was obvious it's a bit sour, especially Steve. After you rejected Nick Fury's offers again and again, he always said you were kidnapped by Sue. But to be honest, as Wanda and Pietro's guardian, I don't have many friends because of work. After much deliberation, I can only invite the two of you. After all, Barton has not returned from his mission. Thank you for inviting X2. Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Suche and Steve laughed at the same time. Go into the apartment. Although the apartment that SHILD arranged for Wanda and Pietro is not small, it is very warmly furnished. The layout of 3 bedrooms, 1 living room, and 2 bathrooms is enough for Wanda, Natasha Romanoff, and Pietro. There are many garlands arranged in the living room, and there is a big cake on the table in the middle. There's even a birthday banner for Wanda and Pietro. It can be seen that Natasha Romanoff really cares about Wanda and Pietro, especially when Wanda and Pietro came over and greeted Suche and Steve very politely. You can tell by watching Wanda holding Natasha Romanoff's arm with undisguised affection. After all, for Wanda and Pietro, looking at the experience of losing parents and joining HYDRA, to be so close to Natasha Romanoff now, this is enough to prove that Natasha Romanoff really raised the Wanda siblings as her own younger siblings. Wanda, Pietro, be happy. Suche and Steve smiled and handed over the birthday present. Steve gave Wanda a very ladylike dress for her birthday and a very handsome suit for Pietro. This is the first time he has received an invitation to a birthday party since he recovered from the ice. So in order to prepare the gift, Steve dragged Sue Dequan to take office. Well, when the shopping guide lady looked at the two of them, that knocked look in her eyes. Forget it, Suche doesn't want to talk about this topic. And Suche prepared a wear-resistant basketball and a latest model palm-shaped game console for Pietro. The gift prepared for Wanda is a necklace of pure crystal and diamonds. Thanks for the gift from Suche and Steve. Both Wanda and Pietro looked very happy. This is the first time they have received a gift since their parents passed away. Especially Wanda. Looking at the pure crystal and diamond-encrusted necklace in his hand, his eyes were almost bent into a crescent shape, and they were obviously brighter. Girls, they all like this kind of gift that can bling-bling in the sun. What's more, this is a gift from my future husband. As for Pietro, while looking at the handsome suit and laughing, he happily held the basketball and the game console. If it wasn't because today is my and Wanda's birthday, it would be a small party. Then Pietro can't wait to put on a suit immediately, pretend to be an adult, and then play a game console with a basketball in his arms. In any case, no matter how mature his mentality is compared to his peers, he is only 15 years old. On the table, seeing that Wanda did not sit with Natasha Romanoff, but sat next to Suche with ease. Even when cutting the cake, after handing the first piece of cake to Natasha Romanoff. Then she handed Suche the part of the fruit cake that she liked the most. Although immersed in the joy of celebrating his birthday, Pietro clearly felt that something was wrong with his sister Wanda. The way she looked at Suche, her eyes were undisguised. It's like looking at a lover. It's over. As the person who is most familiar with Wanda, Pietro is very sure. Wanda absolutely loves this young man named Suche in front of her. That kind of look can never be misunderstood. After liking Natasha Romanoff, my younger sister will start liking Suche, who was only seen once in the coffee shop before. Moreover, sometimes when I go out to the bathroom at night, in the living room, Wanda and Natasha Romanoff can always be heard discussing about Suche. People, Natasha Romanoff and Wanda like each other, and Wanda is a young man named Suche. Sister Natasha Romanoff not only didn't stop her, but smiled and watched the incident happen. Is there even a hint of encouragement? And Suche and Steve came together. Just now, Natasha Romanoff also said that Suche is almost inseparable from Steve these days. Two big men are inseparable? My God, why do I feel that the relationship between these four people is so chaotic? So I should be happy after all. Wanda's orientation is finally normal, and she finally likes men. Or should we be confused? The mess of these four people? For a while, Pietro felt that his head seemed to be a little insufficient. As for Flowers, the small worldview seems to be gradually collapsing. Steve, let Sue drink. Watching myself hand a beer to Steve, who then handed it to Suche. Natasha Romanoff smiled and said, Sue is only 19 years old this year. According to the laws here, Sue is not yet old enough to drink alcohol. After saying this, Natasha Romanoff laughed herself. After all, even she didn't treat Suche as a 19-year-old youth. And Steve even subconsciously looked at Suche in a daze. These days, when two people get along almost day and night, whether it is from chatting or other aspects, Steve felt that Suche and him were people from the same world, and they should be about the same age. So they all subconsciously ignored that Suche is only 19 years old this year, not yet old enough to drink, etc. Suche is 19 years old, not yet old enough to drink. So what's up with the two of them always carrying a bucket of cold beer when the two of them are fishing? No wonder every time, Sue let himself deliver the beer through the SHILD agent monitoring him. The co-author is because he is not old enough, so the store will not sell him alcohol. Okay, don't worry about it. Picking up another beer and handing it to Sue Che, Natasha Romanoff smiled and said, although Sue is not old enough, today is Wanda and Pietro's birthday party after all, so it's a family affair. So don't worry about these little things. No one will report anyway, right? What's more, who among us regards Sue as a young man who is only 19 years old? Listening to Natasha Romanoff's words, Steve nodded slightly. He still felt unable to treat Sue Che as a 19-year-old young man. On the contrary, Wanda, who always sat next to Sue Che and behaved like a very well-behaved lady, was very happy. Well, he was 19. I will be 15 years old after today. For years apart. No matter how old he is in the parallel world. But his parallel world has been destroyed. And in his parallel world, he is definitely an adult, otherwise he would not be his wife. Therefore, the time in his world is several years faster than the time in this world. Calculated in this way, in this world, the age difference between myself and Sue is only 4 years old, just right. Several people sat at the dining table talking and laughing very happily. But Asgard at the same time. At this moment, Loki looked at the scene in front of him and was already a little dazed. Chapter 71. Loki is stunned. Thor is exiled, but he hasn't made a move yet. Loki admits that he has always been very jealous of Thor. It was okay when I was a child and my father would hold the hand of myself and Thor at that time. Tell yourself and Thor that both of them are born kings. Available over time, he was obviously neglected by his father. Thor has his father's obvious favorites. As for himself, he always lives in his shadow. Obviously, it was himself and Thor who led the warriors of Asgard to fight against the rebellion in the Nine Realms. But after the victory, he was appreciated by his father and supported by the people of Asgard. There is always only Thor alone. Obviously, it is myself and Thor who are qualified to pick up the Mjolnir, which symbolizes Asgard's next god king. However, his father gave Thor the godhood of the thunder god, and I just got the godhood of Vulcan. I don't know why, but I seem to be born to reject the godhood of Vulcan. That is a kind of resistance and rejection from the subconscious. So back then I even prayed to my father, even if I couldn't get the godhood of the god of thunder. Then it could be exchanged with Sif's earth and harvest godhood. But in the end, his father severely rejected himself. It seems to have started from that time. The gap between himself and Thor in terms of force is getting bigger and bigger. Seriously, Luke doesn't hate his father. After all, the godhood of Vulcan and the godhood of thunder are the same. Both are advanced godhoods. And like Thor, he is the heir of his father, the god King Odin. They all have the supreme bloodline of the Aesir Protoss. The force is not as good as Thor. It must be because of his innate. Mother should have discovered this too, so she taught herself magic. Let yourself become the #1 magic mage in the Nine Realms. Only in Asgard with a tongue. Mage is not respected by the people of Asgard like Thor. Maybe that's why. So even though I am the #1 demon in the Nine Realms, mage, I still like to hold 2 daggers and choose close combat. I want to tell everyone that I am also a qualified Asgard commander. It's just that the father is more and more partial to Thor. Since there is no way to surpass Thor in terms of force, let's start with strategy. But when I rely on tricks again and again, relying on wisdom to lead the warrior of Asgard to defeat the enemy. However, it seems that I still haven't gained the kind of respect I imagined, being respected like Thor. Instead, he gained the title of god of lies and tricks. Who doesn't know that in Asgard, the title of god of lies and tricks is more of a mockery? The majestic second prince of Asgard actually became the god of trickery in Asgard, a country of the 9 realms Asgardians, who is very martial. What a mocking title. Looking at Thor, who successfully brought Asgard judgment again and returned with Asgard warrior triumphantly. The trace of jealousy in Loki's heart can't be suppressed no matter what, especially when his father praised Thor as a fool in front of everyone. Loki felt that his jealous flame seemed to be able to melt all matter in the 9 realms. Why? Why is this arrogant guy able to gain the worship of the people of Asgard? Why did this reckless, stupid, and belligerent guy gain such favor from his father? Obviously, I'm no worse than him. Obviously, I am smarter than him. But why my father's eyes are always unwilling to look at me? Jealousy blazed in Loki's heart, especially when he heard that his father was preparing to hand over the position of Asgard's next god king to Thor. Loki's jealous flames reached a peak. Looking up at Thor, Loki is expressionless. But he was thinking in his heart that he must find a suitable opportunity to frame Thor, and then let his father realize that Thor is a stupid fool. This is not for anything else, let alone for the high throne. I just want to prove it to my father. I am no worse than Thor. I am also worthy of my father's love. Perhaps waiting for Thor's coronation after a while is a good opportunity. After all, Heimdall's eyes claim to be able to see every slight change within the 9 realms. But he couldn't see the passage leading to Jotunheim, the frosty Titan country. Well, it must be well designed, after all, with Thor's reckless and arrogant character. Once the coronation ceremony is destroyed by the Frost Titan, just need to insinuate yourself. Then he will definitely be hooked. At that time, all you need to do is to force yourself to be the king at the critical moment. Then the father will definitely see that he is more reliable than Thor. Everything was planned perfectly. Now it's time to go back and design the details. It's just that he hasn't finished planning silently in his heart. The next moment, Lu Ji became emotional. What's the situation? Why did the father and Thor have a violent dispute? Wasn't it still a very harmonious compliment just now? Why did the two of them quarrel after I lost my mind for a while? And the tone is still so intense. Even an angry Thor began to accuse his father of being a fatuous king? No, who can tell himself what happened? Aren't you just distracted for a while? And usually at this time, shouldn't the mother come forward to stop the two people's anger? Why this time? Not only did mother not help Thor speak, but also did not comfort father. Instead, he stood beside his father without saying a word, even when he heard his father say that Thor is not a qualified crown prince, to deprive him of his divine power and banish him to earth. Mother didn't intercede for Thor? What's the situation? Is this still the gentle and kind mother I know, the mother who acts as the glue between father and Thor? And just banish Thor? Seeing his father's anger, he actually stretched out his hand and used divine power to deprive Thor of his power. And when the Rainbow Channel is open to exile Thor and throw Mjolnir down, he also said that anyone who is qualified to lift the hammer can gain divine power. Loki is really stupid. This time, Dad actually played for real. He literally stripped Thor of his powers and exiled him. And until Thor disappeared under the light of Bifrost, the mother did not intercede. This made Loki even more confused. This wish come true? But I haven't designed Thor yet. Father. Seeing this scene, Loki stepped forward in a daze and called his father. But in the next second, he saw his father staring at him angrily. Shut up. Don't ask Thor for mercy. After finishing speaking, Odin seemed to be out of breath, holding the gun of eternity and going over. Father. Seeing his father fainted, Loki didn't care about being a little dazed and hurried forward to help him. But he saw that his mother seemed to have been prepared and directly supported the fainted father 2.7. Loki, your father was really PD off by Thor this time, and I'm afraid he will have to enter the Eye of Eternity to recuperate for a while. During the time Thor was exiled, you temporarily exercised the right of King of Asgard to manage Asgard for your father. After speaking, he hurriedly supported the fainted Odin and headed to the Asgard recovery room. Only Loki was left standing alone, a little dazed and stupidly standing here. I don't know how long it has been. When Loki came outside Asgard, he sat alone on the steps of Asgard and looked into the distance. Until now, Loki hadn't reacted. For the first time, Loki, the so-called god of trickery in Asgard. There are times when I feel like my brain is not enough. Thanks to the Abandoned World brothers for reminding and supporting votes, and thanks to Dreamlike, smiling proudly, cat-loving Sky, after the rain, only enjoying happiness. Yeet Songming, 15107, the monthly pass of the 7 big bosses. The background information has just been refreshed. Sorry. Chapter 72 Loki. Thor was exiled before I could do it. Loki, what happened? Looking at Loki sitting on the steps, he seems to be in deep thought at the moment. Sif hurried over with the 3 warriors of Asgard and Asgard. I just heard the news that Thor was deprived of his divine power and exiled by the God King. What's going on here? Yeah, Loki. What the hell just happened? We obviously won the battle. Why would Thor be exiled by the deprivation power of the God King? Looking at the four Sifs who hurried over, their faces full of anxiety. Loki, who was gradually in a good mood, felt a little uncomfortable at this moment, especially listening to Sif and the three warriors of Asgard questioning themselves. Loki frowned even more. Although they are all playmates who grew up together. But is Thor so important in your heart? As soon as you heard the news that Thor was exiled by his father, you rushed over to question yourselves. What if it wasn't Thor who was exiled, but himself? Will you still be in such a hurry like you are now? Although there is such a slight discomfort in my heart. But Loki didn't show it. Instead, he looked at the four people in front of him and said calmly, I don't know exactly what happened, although I have been in the Hall of Asgard just now. But the father and Thor started to quarrel fiercely while talking. Even Thor angrily accused his father, saying that he is a fatuous and incompetent king, and that Asgard will come to an end sooner or later under his leadership. It was because of such words that the father was completely disappointed in Thor, and then deprived him of his divine power and exiled him. Hearing what Loki said, Nozomi and the three warriors of Shinny all took a breath. Blame His Majesty the God King? How dare Thor do that? How could he do that? Now what? Hearing what Loki said, he glanced at the three warriors who were anxiously spinning around. Sif frowned and said to Loki, We can't just watch Thor be exiled like this. No, I'm going to see the God King and ask him to forgive Thor's impulsive, reckless remarks. Yes, let's find His Majesty the God King together. You must have said that on impulse. Hearing Sif's words, the Fandral three warriors seemed to have found their backbone. Immediately wanted to enter the Asgard Hall to ask Odin. It's useless, seeing that the four were about to go to Asgard behind him. Loki sighed helplessly. Do you think I didn't persuade the king? In fact, when Thor contradicted his father again, I tried to persuade him, but he was scolded by him to shut up. And now, the father has been stunned by Thor's anger. Otherwise, my mother would not let me perform the duties of the Prince of Asgard during this time, and take charge of Asgard for my father. With that said, Loki lightly activated the eternal spear in his hand. Watching the movements in Loki's hands, the four of Sif realized it. What Loki held in his hand was actually holding His Majesty's eternal spear. After just hearing the news that Thor was exiled, the four were too anxious. So much so that they ignored the eternal gun in Loki's hand, which symbolized His Majesty the God King. But now, when you see the gun of eternity, only then did the four of Sif believe that His Majesty the God King was really fainted by Thor's anger. And Queen Frigg let Loki take charge of Asgard during this time. Otherwise, how could the eternal gun be in Loki's court? This is going to be bad. Looking at the eternal gun in Loki's hand, the four of Sif were completely helpless. Thor was exiled, and His Majesty, the only God King who could pardon him, fainted from anger. Etc. Looking at Loki holding the eternal gun, Fandral's eyes lit up, as if he had thought of something. Loki, you are now in charge of Asgard for His Majesty the God King. So that means you now have the same status as the King of Asgard. Then you can use this status to pardon Thor and let the exiled Thor return to Asgard. Hearing Fandral's words, the other two nodded their heads immediately. On the contrary, Loki sneered inwardly after hearing Fandral's words. Although not planned by myself, but I finally waited until Thor was exiled, and I could manage Asgard and prove to my father that I am no worse than Thor. I am also worthy of his attention and love. Turns out it's such a good chance that you let me pardon the exiled Thor. Not to mention whether you want to or not. Just say that the father exiled Thor for a second, and then passed out with anger. Will he pardon Thor directly in the next second? This is really worried that the father will not be PD off. So I also joined Thor's ranks. Come on and try to PS off my father? When you co-authored it, you only thought about Thor, and you didn't think on my side at all, did you? Don't come up with random ideas. Listening to Fandral's words, Sif glared at him. His Majesty the God King just exiled Thor. If Loki pardons Thor at this moment with the identity of acting king, then isn't that intentional and that His Majesty's decision is wrong? Listening to Sif's words, Van Wall scratched his head. He also knew what he just said was inappropriate, but now he really has nothing to do. Loki, you are the smartest one among the playmates we grew up with. You have to find a way to do this. Listening to Sif's words, Loki nodded slightly. Oh, now you know that I am the smartest person? I'm afraid what you just wanted to say is that I am the one among you who has the most scheming tricks. Although he thought so in his heart, Loki still said softly, although I don't think of a way to pardon Thor now, I still need you to help me deal with the matter of Asgard while my father fainted. Don't worry about Thor here. He is my 150 big brother. How could I just watch him being exiled? When the father wakes up, when the time is right, I will persuade the father, let him calm down, and then pardon Thor. After all, Thor is his father's most beloved son. As for this period of time, Sif, you passed my order to ask your big brother Heimdall to pay more attention to Thor, at least not to put his life in danger when he is exiled. Hearing what Loki said, Fandral and the 3 Asgard warriors felt a little relieved. Now that Loki has said so, as a conspiracy, which one is the smartest? Then Thor will definitely come back. As for Sif, although she always felt that there seemed to be something wrong with Loki's words, but still nodded. That's right. The most important thing right now is to let your big brother Heimdall pay more attention to Thor's movements. In case of danger, people like myself should go to the exiled land to protect Thor as soon as possible. Watching Sif and the 3 warriors of Asgard leave, the original expression was calm, even Loki, who was annoyed by Thor's encounter. At this moment, the corners of his mouth raised unconsciously. What a great opportunity. Thor was exiled, and his father passed out. As long as I am managing Asgard, I can help Asgard deal with the big trouble of Jotunheim. Then, Father Wong must be very pleased when he wakes up. All because of Asgard. Chapter 73. Wow. Iron Man, why are you in such a mess? State, hearing a knock on the door, Steve Rogers put down his toothbrush and rinsed his mouth. Then he went to the door and opened the door. Sue. He looked at the person standing outside the door, who was wearing a silver and white cloak battle suit at the moment, and he couldn't see his face clearly under the simple visor. Steve Rogers asked tentatively, "Take off the visor, except for the vision function layer on the face." Suche folded his arms and looked at Steve with a smile. "Do you have time to watch a show? Watching a play?" Hearing what Suche said, Steve invited Suche in and asked curiously, "What show are you watching so late? Are you talking about a movie? But judging by your outfit, it shouldn't be just watching a movie." 3 streets away, Tony Stark, wearing the Mark armor, is fighting Obadiah Stein's Iron Lord at Stark Industries. But I heard that Tony seemed to be abused very badly. Natasha Romanoff got a call from Nick Fury. Then I was worried that Tony would not be able to beat the Iron King, or that something might happen, so I hoped I could help out. As he spoke, Ian picked up the unopened soda water on the table and opened it to take a sip. Then he smiled and asked Steve, who became serious because of the news. "So, Man Changyi has nothing to do anyway. Are you going?" "Definitely go. Wait for me for 2 minutes." Hearing about Tony Stark's accident and listening to Suche's tone, it seems that Tony is not the opponent of Obadiah Stan's Iron King. Steve Rogers definitely can't ignore it. After all, Tony is the son of his old friend Howard Stark. How could I just watch Tony being crushed and beaten? When Uncle, even for Howard's sake, you have to help Tony, right? Watching Steve walk into the room immediately, not even asking if Obadiah Stein was arrested. Why is it now in Stark Industries? Then there was no question about fighting Tony. Suche took a sip of the soda water and then looked at the brand of the soda water. TSK. As expected, food, clothing, housing, and transportation all belong to SHILD agent. And even if you don't join SHILD, you can get a salary every week. Sure enough, even the soda that SHILD prepared for Steve was the best. In less than a minute, Steve Rogers came out of the room in his classic battle suit and shield. "Sue, let's go now, W." "Okay, anyway, I'm also worried that the glass in my coffee shop will suffer again. The last one was spoiled by the presence of Olivia Temple. But that time there was compensation from S.H.I.E.L.D. This time, Tony Stark versus Obadiah Stan is going to break my coffee shop. I don't know if that fellow Tony Stark is willing to pay compensation. He should compensate, After all, he is not short of money. Who knows? Anyway, since the last time I cheated him with Peepo, this guy has been full of defenses against me, as if I would cheat him again. While talking, the two quickly rushed to the Stark Industry 3 streets away. It's not that Suche can't use the water in the air to fly over. But back then, Natasha Romanoff put her arms around her and let it go. I really can't imagine what kind of picture it is to be photographed with Steve hugging himself and then falling from the sky. And just 3 streets, according to the physical fitness of 2 people. You can rush over with ease. He even thought about rushing there while chatting. As for Tony Stark, will he be tortured by the Iron King because of this period of time? Well, this worry is a bit unnecessary. After all, even if the Iron Overlord wants to smash the Mark armor, it will take time, right? What's more, although Tony was more thrilling this time, he still won in the end, on the street where Stark Industries is located. Boom! Controlling the Mark armor that was knocked out, Tony Stark landed smoothly. Before he could react, he saw Obadiah Stan wearing Iron Overlord directly lift up a car and threw it at him. After quickly scanning the car, it was discovered that there were actually passengers in the car. Tony Stark ignored Obadiah Stein's small missile. Instead, he caught the car directly and steadily, then turned around and used the back of the battle armor to resist the small bomb. The strong explosion pushed Tony, who was fighting hard, several meters away. And the car that was caught and protected by Tony Stark was stepping on the accelerator fiercely at this moment. "Hey ma'am, calm down," listening to screaming while stepping on the accelerator. I even rolled myself under the car. Tony Stark tried his best to control the armor to climb out, while calming down the lady. However, when a normal person encounters such a fright, who can easily calm down, not to mention that I was driving the car to get off work properly, but in the middle of the drive, a huge iron shell suddenly jumped from the sky. Holding the car is like another Red's iron shell smashed over. Before he could react, the car was thrown into the air, and there was a whirl of heaven and earth. Even the tall iron box was frantically firing missiles towards this side. Depend on, under such extreme stimulation, how could the car owner calm down? Well, this is hard for Tony Stark. Wounded underground by the car kept stepping on the accelerator, and he was pressed on his body by the car. Even the battle armor was scratched by sparks on the road. Just here, not far away, Obadiah Stan is still staring at this side, and a small missile has been activated on the arm of the Iron Bully. Seeing this scene, Tony Stark controlled the battle armor and raised his hand, intending to use the energy of his palm, Li Zhaohao, to attack the Iron Overlord. It's good to delay yourself for a few seconds. It only takes a few seconds to delay, and I can get out from under the car in a state of embarrassment. But before the palm energy cannon was activated, the missile from the Iron Overlord attacked in an instant. At the critical moment, a guy wearing a blue star-striped battle suit blocked the missile with a shield, and another guy wearing a silver and white cloak battle suit pressed his hand on the front of the car, preventing the bottom of the car from supporting him to continue rubbing on the road. Wow, isn't this the dignified Tony Stark? TSK, you are in such a mess. I don't know if Pepper will feel sad for you when he sees the picture of being caught under the car. But I think when she sees this scene, she will definitely forgive you for cheating on her. Lifting the car, dragging Tony Stark with one hand, Suche let Tony Stark climb out from under the car, while laughing and joking. Chapter 74, Oh My God, Silver Moon Knight and Captain America form a group to bully people. Silver Moon Knight? My God, that's the Silver Moon Knight that was uploaded on the internet last time. Oh my God, it's really Silver Moon Knight. Look, he lifted the car with one hand and then rescued that red Iron Man. Oh God, who's that guy with the shield? Looks like Captain Magnesium in Legendary. Hell, didn't Captain Rogers die 70 years ago? How come he's still alive? As God bears witness, I must be crazy to see Captain Rogers and Silver Moon Knight teaming up in Legendary. OMG. Originally, he ran around to avoid, for fear that the battle between the two Iron Men would affect their citizens. After seeing Silver Moon Knight and Magnesium Country Captain suddenly, he immediately exclaimed again and again. Even some people hiding in the corner took out their mobile phones and started taking pictures. On sight. Damn it, I knew it was you. Climbing out from under the car, he pulled Suche's hand and stood up, watching the driver screaming and hitting the gas and rushing out of the car. Tony Stark complained to Suche. I knew the person with that old popsicle and antique record player must not be a common man. But having said that, what's the matter with your visor? Why can't even JRVIs analyze your appearance even though it looks so simple? While looking at the stumbling, only less than 30% of the energy is left on the 287 armor. Tony Stark complained to Suche's mask. You can't be like Batman, wearing a helmet with cat ears so that others can't recognize it. You're talking about Catwoman. Before Suche could answer, he took the shield and kicked it into Iron Bully. In the end, Steve Rogers, who bounced back and landed smoothly, corrected Tony. At the same time, he stood up and continued to Tony Stark. Also, Tony, we are here to support you. Are you sure you want to say that about your supporters? Well, Tony Stark just complained about himself. Steve Rogers said he heard it very clearly. Old antique records are fine. Why add an old popsicle? I didn't ask you two guys to come over to help. Please. You don't think you can beat me with just this stupid big guy in front of you? Listen to Tony Stark. Steve and Suki, who were originally staring at the Iron King, turned their heads to look at him almost at the same time. Stared at by two people. Tony Stark was silent for a few seconds. Then he controlled the armor and spread his hands. Okay, my fault. Not far away. Seeing that he was able to use missiles just now, he could get rid of Tony Stark. But suddenly a family, guy who had been dead for more than 70 years appeared and blocked the missile with a shield. Not only that, but another Inueki who was particularly popular on the internet a few days ago. They also came out to join in the fun and rescued Tony Stark from under the car. This makes Obadiah Stine rage. Damn it, obviously, these two guys are here to help Tony Stark. If it wasn't for the two of them, I would have already blown up Tony Stark to ashes. Obadiah Stan, under rage, raised the arm of the Iron Overlord without any hesitation. In an instant, bullets poured out towards the three people standing together like a dense network of fire and rain. Careful, watching Obadiah Stine's movements. The next second, Steve Rogers picked up the shield to block in front of Suche. And Tony Stark is wearing armor directly. Subconsciously, and without any hesitation, he stood in front of the two of them, jingling. Bullet attack on Tony Stark's mark armor. There was a constant crispy sound of ping-pong-pong as the bullet casings landed. Before Tony Stark raised his palm energy cannon to fight back, there was a slight sound of running water behind him. I didn't see how fast it was. Then I saw Suche wearing a silver and white cloak and battle armor, stepping on the water and soaring into the air in an extremely handsome posture. Then he rushed towards Obadiah Stan's Iron Overlord in the air. Its speed was so fast that even the cloak behind him rustled. And by landing huge amounts of inertia from the air, with just one kick, the Iron Bully, who was shooting at the three of them, flew out. Boom! There was a violent sound like a hammer hitting a lead block. The entire Iron Overlord flew upside down like a kite with a broken string, uncontrollably smashed tens of meters away. But as soon as the Iron Overlord landed, he fired a missile directly at Suche. Hello! Careful! Seeing the missile rush towards Suche at a high speed, Steve and Tony ran towards Suche almost at the same time. Boom! The distance of more than 10 meters has not waited for the two people to arrive. The missile directly hit Suche, and then a violent explosion occurred. The flames and strong air wave shockwave caused by the explosion even lifted the manhole cover on the ground. The glass of the surrounding shops was crackled and shattered directly. After the violent explosion, Suche, who was in the middle of the explosion, did not move. At this moment, he stood there unharmed. Not even the slightest trace was left on the silver-white cloak battlesuit. That's it. Looking at the Iron Bully who fell on the ground and was flying up. With an extremely contemptuous attitude, Suche raised his hand and swept the dust left on the shoulders of the battlesuit. Mr. Tony Stark, please allow me to say something. The weapons manufactured by Stark Industries seem to be really not working. The real reason why you shut down the Stark Industries weapons manufacturing department is not because of this. Seeing Suche standing there intact, he even thoughtfully patted the dust on his shoulders. Tony Stark breathed a sigh of relief. But if Suche, who rushed over to support him, really had an accident, Then Tony Stark felt that he would be guilty for the rest of his life. But the idea just popped up and was thrown away by Tony Stark. Dude, I now know why Pepper called you Mr. Superman. Also, damn BD, you were the first to say that the weapons made by our Stark Industries are not good. Do you know that if your words are spread, it will make Rhodes and the group of guys behind him sad? It's money. As for the reason why I shut down the weapons manufacturing department, it's because, forget it, even if I explain it to you, you won't listen. Do not know why. Every time I see Suche, I am the mouth that claims to be able to complain about others to the point of going crazy, but always deflated in front of him. He is like his nemesis. Every time I can say very accurately that I am speechless. Unfortunately, I still can't let myself feel disgusted. This is no one else. It made me feel a little stupid. Hey, that stupid iron shell has been lifted into the air. How much energy do you have in your battle armor? Do you need me to help you get rid of it? Don't worry, the shooting fee is very cheap. No, I can solve them myself. Watching the Iron King fly into the air, Tony Stark controlled the Mark armor and started to take off. Do not know why. The stupid iron shell that Suche just said. Does Tony Stark always feel like he's alluding to himself? Forget it, never mind. Damn Obadiah Stein just made himself embarrassing in front of Suche and Steve. This face must be found by oneself. Take the shield and come to Suche. Steve raised his head and looked at the Iron King and Mark armor flying higher and higher into the night sky. He couldn't help saying to Suche with a little envy, I can fly. It's really enviable. Chapter 75 for Suche. Tony chose to accept his fate. Looking at Steve with envy, Suche, who was wearing a battle suit, said, Yes, it is really enviable to be able to fly. But then again, I seem to know that the military has an auxiliary flight device. According to your relationship with them and your influence among them, it shouldn't be difficult to come up with a set. Hearing what Suche said, Steve thought for a while, then shook his head. Let's forget it. I don't want to have anything to do with them now. You know, in the eyes of common soldiers, maybe I'm a so-called legendary. But in the eyes of those high-level executives, maybe I'm still the one who got the serum injected and then only performed on the stage to help them sell bonds. Also, I hate this kind of thing that is more symbolic than practical. Maybe they'll give me a huge comeback ceremony. But speaking of this, Steve Rogers spread his hands without any entanglement. Instead of helping them stand on the platform, it's better for us to drink coffee and go fishing every day. People have to have their own lives, right? Hearing Steve's very thorough words, Suche leaned on a car and laughed. I agree with this point. After all, people are not machines. But are you really determined to reject Nick Fury's repeated invitation to join SHIELD? I don't know either. Taking a deep breath, Steve looked up at the night sky. At this moment, the Iron Overlord and the Mark armor are still flying into the sky like shooting stars. The only thing I am grateful for is that when I woke up from the ice, I found that I am not alone in this world. While it's to say it, I really feel lucky. Otherwise, I am the only one in this world who has been sleeping for more than 70 years. And when I wake up, I find that I cannot integrate into this strange world. I've had enough of that feeling. You know, in the first few days when I woke up, I couldn't sleep almost every night. Fortunately, you are with me. Turning his head to look at Suche, Steve looked sincerely and said angrily, Come on, man. Hearing what Steve said, Suche spread out his hands. It's like I'm your sleep aid, and I like women. I'm not interested in men. My orientation is also normal. Facing Suche's ridicule, Steve looked at the shield in his hand with a trace of nostalgia in his eyes. I also have Peggy. It's just, well, actually, even though Nick Fury is now the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. But at the end of the day, Howard and Paige built S.H.I.E.L.D. Even for the sake of these two people, if SHIELD needs it, I may not be able to refuse. In this case, it can be regarded as having a legitimate job. Looking at Suche, Steve raised the shield in his hand. After all, SHIELD pays me a salary every month. I can't just take their salary and not work. Although Bai Tong's salary is indeed quite happy. Hearing what Steve said, Suche nodded. All right, help SHIELD when you have tasks, drink coffee and go fishing when you don't have tasks, and live the life of common people. That's pretty good. How about you? Hearing what Suche said, Steve smiled seriously. I know that Nick Fury attaches great importance to you. Usually when he calls me, he mentions you almost every few sentences. If you're going to join SHIELD, then I think Nick Fury will be crazy about it. Faced with Steve's very sincere invitation, Siping really wanted to join SHIELD with him. But Suche shook his head and refused. It's fine for me to be like this now. Let's forget about joining SHIELD. Besides, I don't trust SHIELD either. Don't trust. Hearing what Suche said, Steve Rogers' expression remained unchanged, but his eyes instantly became serious. You mean SHIELD? Boom! Before Steve Rogers could ask the question, an icy iron bully fell from the night sky in the next second. The huge amounts of sound even shook the cars parked around to the sound of alarms. On the ground, a small hole was also smashed out. If it wasn't for the shockproof design, I'm afraid Obadiah Stan would have been thrown to his death. What did I say? The Mark armor wearing classic color schemes fell from the sky and landed in front of the two of them. Tony Stark opened the visor and proudly said to Suche and Steve, I just said, a stupid iron shell wants to compare with my Mark armor? Ask for flowers. I'm enough to clean him up alone. Looking at Tony Stark's triumphant look, Suche and Steve glanced at each other. Then why don't you continue? Pointing to the Iron King, who had stood up from the ground at this moment, Suche smiled at Tony. Water. Turning his head, he watched Obadiah standing up from the ground while controlling the damaged armor. Iron Bully's arm also turned into a round of Gatling-like weapons. Tony Stark listened to the report from JRVS. The armor had less than 12% of its energy left. Then he directly took a step back. Let's forget it, after all. You two have worked so hard to come to support me. If you don't let the two of you finish, maybe people will think that I, Tony Stark, are not polite. Well, with 12% of energy left, Tony thought it would be better for him to keep it and fly back to his villa. Damn it, if it wasn't for the arc reactor being snatched by Obadiah Stein, I have already dealt with him. Fortunately, I have support now. Anyway, there is Suche, my own nemesis and old popsicle Steve. There is absolutely no problem dealing with a mere Obadiah Stan. Tisk, nice and polite Stark, this is the best joke I've heard this year. The best joke of the year. Hearing Tony's blunt words, Suche laughed and teased. Then he got up and walked in the direction of Obadiah Stan's Iron Overlord. Regarding Suche's ridicule, Tony Stark decided to ignore it. He has gotten used to himself not being able to tell his truth at all. Damn bastards, if it weren't for you, I would have killed Tony Stark. That fool who only knows how to have fun. Go to hell. It seemed as if he lost his mind when he watched Suche walking towards him in the Silver Moon Knight suit. Obadiah Stein raised his arm, transformed into Gatling's weapon with a grim face, fiercely shooting bullets at Suche like a rain of fire. Countless bullets are densely packed like a net, which seems to be able to illuminate the entire night sky. However, that powerful bullet couldn't affect Suche at all. Just kidding. The owner of the Superman body is an advanced and perfect version of himself. If you are injured by bullets or even killed, that is a big joke. Chapter 76 Tony. In this way, I will study the anti-Silver Moon Knight armor. Wow! It would be shocking enough to see a person resisting missiles and using his own defense to face Gatling's thousands of bullets without being injured. Then when I saw Suche condense water droplets from the air and then drilled into the gap of the Iron King's armor. After that, it was very easy to directly use the power of water, and the Iron Overlord was torn apart and turned into a pile of scrap iron. Tony Stark's expression was a little ugly at the moment. Maybe after going back, I should design a battle armor with no gaps to prevent water from entering through the gaps. Well, even if you can only enter the first layer of the armor, the inside of the armor is not waterproof. Perhaps the anti-Silver Moon Knight armor should also appear on your own design drawings. You must know that the materials used in my Mark armor and Obadiah Stan's armor are all materials used in the aerospace industry. The armor made of this material is not to mention the 957 bombs. Even missiles can't damage it. But it was such a hard battle armor. But Suche easily broke it into pieces with the power of water. Then this ability. TSK, he really is his biggest nemesis. Not only in words, but also in terms of ability. Don't be ridiculous. If the armor has no gaps, then where did Ant-Man get in and destroy? I curse you, you bloody bastards are all go to hell. I curse you. After dismantling the Iron King, listening to Obadiah Stein's mouth and nose bleed from the force of the water just now, but still cursing himself with anger in his eyes, Suche directly sealed his mouth with water. To kill or not to kill, it is best to let Tony Stark make his own choice. Lest it be an afterthought, right? Seal its mouth so as not to pollute the back of its ears. Suche seemed to have a perception of something and glanced somewhere in the opposite floor. Then he ignored it, but smiled at Tony Stark. How about it? Do you want to listen to your uncle as truth again? Depend on. Made an international friendly gesture towards Suche, wearing armor. Tony Stark pinched his waist and said, let's save his true words in the prison. Are you sure you don't want to send him to hell? You must know that if he can escape from Phobo once, he might be able to escape the second time. Tony, choosing to be merciful to your enemies is not a good choice. Listening to Suche's words, Captain America, who was holding a shield on the side, also nodded. Indeed, if the enemy cannot be eliminated directly, there will be a great hidden danger. Listen to both Suche and Steve say that. Tony Stark glanced through the visor, and his mouth was blocked by the flow of water. But he glared at himself, Obadiah Stane, who seemed to want to say something constantly. After a moment of hesitation, Tony Stark still shook his head and said, forget it, this time I will let Rhodes' forces imprison him personally. Well, that's your enemy anyway. Seeing that Tony Stark still couldn't make up his mind, Suche naturally didn't say much. In the movie, Tony Stark can use Stark Industries' huge arc reactor to blow up Obadiah Stane. It was because at that time, if he could not be cruel, then he and Peepo would be the ones who died. But now, Obadiah Stane has obviously lost his combat ability, so maybe Tony Stark thinks it doesn't matter if he dies or not. Thanks. Looking at Suche and Steve, Tony Stark said, although I can solve this stupid iron shell by myself. But anyway, you two also sacrificed your personal sleep time to help, especially for elderly people like Captain Antique. Sleep time is very important. So, Steve, do you ever regret coming to help him? Listening to Tony's relaxed tone, he seems to be out of tune, but he is actually expressing his gratitude in his unique way. Suche looked at Steve and asked with a smile. Well enough. Holding the shield in his hand, Steve also smiled and shook his head. I know, he is definitely Howard's son. Sure enough, even the way of expressing gratitude is so similar. As soon as Steve's voice fell, a siren sounded through the night sky not far away. Wow, it's really like in the movie, these people are always one step late. With that said, Tony Stark controlled the armor to leave the ground. I don't want to argue with him in the middle of the night. So you too, since you don't need an appearance fee. Do you want me to give you a ride? You'd better carry Steve. Steve, because of Che's foot, also opened a water garden. I have a way to leave. Seeing that both Suche and Tony Stark seemed to have a way to take off, Steve shook his head and threw the shield to Suche, and then came to Tony Stark's armor. Sue, if I knew it, I agreed just now, and I want a set of flight equipment from the military. I don't know if there is one in S.H.I.E.L.D. otherwise. It would be really inconvenient. After the words fell, Steve grabbed Tony's arm and signaled to take off. Otherwise, the police car will arrive soon. Facing Steve's proposal, Tony Stark definitely would not refuse. In an instant, the crowd of people who were hiding in the video and taking pictures were curious, envious, watching and guessing. The three of them soared into the air and then disappeared into the night sky. Boom! As the three people left, a bullet pierced the night sky in the next second and accurately pierced the head of Obadiah Stane, who was sitting on the ground and kept waving. Well, you're welcome. Putting away the sniper rifle, Natasha Romanoff quickly disassembled the sniper rifle and then pressed the headset to tell Nick Fury that the task was completed. One side quickly disappeared into this floor. Just leave a perfect corpse for the police car that is about to get here. In fact, there was Suche, the Silver Moon Knight, and Captain America Steve Rogers. Nick Fury wasn't worried at all that Tony Stark wouldn't be able to beat Obadiah Stane's Iron Man. But after defeating him, how to deal with Obadiah Stane in 2.6. Nick Fury knew that whether it was Suche or Steve, he would hand over the choice to Tony Stark. After all, this is Tony Stark's personal enemy, and he's the guy he considers uncle. So after Nick Fury decided that Tony Stark would definitely not kill him, he asked Natasha Romanoff to come over temporarily for an overtime shift. As for Obadiah Stane, Nick Fury still thinks that only dead enemies are the best enemies. Chapter 77, Iron Man and Captain America's Big Brain Supplement Scene. Next morning, hey, you know what? Obadiah stands dead, looking at Suche and Steve with a cup of coffee. Tony Stark laughed. Just after we beat Obadiah Stane yesterday, and we left together. Before the police car arrived, Obadiah Stane was directly killed by a sniper bullet. Do you think this stranger who got rid of Obadiah Stane is coming for us? Or for Obadiah Stane? Could it be related to my kidnapping? I always feel that there should be other forces behind Obadiah Stane. Otherwise, how did he escape from the FBI? Listen to Tony Stark swearing by conspiracy theories. Steve Rogers also nodded with a serious expression. Maybe you are right, Tony. We cannot easily rule out this guess. But Tony, have you found any other clues? Not at all. Faced with Steve's inquiry, Tony Stark spread his hands. It's as if after Obadiah Stane died, all clues related to the forces behind him were cut off. Even according to the results of my investigation, Obadiah Stane seems to really want to become the master of the Stark industry because of his inflated ambitions. That's why he planned to attack and kidnap me. Speaking of this, Tony Stark shook his head with a solemn expression. Master Kong, don't you think this reason is ridiculous? The more people try to cover up the truth, the more reality we can see reality. If it is said that this is just the ambition of Obadiah Stane alone, then I absolutely do not believe it. After all, he has had countless opportunities over the years. Why did he choose to act now? I even destroyed the entire Obadiah Stane's private weapon sales channel from top to bottom some time ago. Several incidents of Obadiah Stane using his private channels to sell weapons to people who could not find any results were discovered. I suspect that the people behind Obadiah Stane are these buyers who cannot be identified. Looking at Tony's serious expression, Steve nodded slightly. Indeed, according to Tony, if Obadiah Stane really is just his own ambition, want to get rid of Tony and annex Stark Industries. Well, according to Tony's trust in him, he has indeed had countless opportunities to strike in these years. But he has been holding back until some time ago before making a move. What is he waiting for? There should have been better opportunities than this before. What's more, Tony also said that he couldn't investigate some of the people who bought weapons from Obadiah Stane. This is doubtful, and his escape from FBI custody. In addition, the three of them had just left last night, and Obadiah Stane, who was no longer of any use value, was directly killed. It all fit what Tony had guessed. Perhaps there are other forces behind Obadiah Stane. Aside, look at the two people who are thinking and analyzing very seriously. Suche lowered his head and looked at the coffee cup in front of him expressionlessly, but actually he didn't know whether to laugh or what. What the hell? The two future big three of the Avengers alliance are actually starting to make up a big conspiracy theory at this moment, although both Tony and Steve are very reasonable. But the truth is, the kidnapping and attack on Tony was planned because Obadiah Stane wanted to annex Stark Industries. The reason is that simple. How can there be so many complicated situations? He was able to escape from the FBI because Obadiah Stane bribed the guards. That's what Natasha Romanoff said when she called herself. I haven't done anything in these years. And it's also because Obadiah Stane's ambitions haven't expanded to the current level at that time. The most important thing is the person who killed him last night. If my perception was correct last night, it should be Natasha Romanoff. Watching the two of them brainstorm and even start to fill in the details, they really hit it off one by one. For a moment, Suche didn't know what to say, etc. He glanced at the two people. Suche crossed his arms and thought about it. As we all know, before Captain America, the Winter Soldier, Hydra was almost everywhere. And Steve is Hydra's most serious enemy. Tony Stark, Howard's son, has been wearing steel armor since he escaped from the desert. It should also be very concerned by the forces of HYDRA. Although, at present all Hydra has been hiding, its ultimate purpose is for that vision plan. However, you must know that the current high-level executives in various fields, even members of Congress, have the shadow of HYDRA. So, these two guys will not really find out some Hydra because of this incident. They are investigating and investigating. If so, that will be very interesting. Dude, you've been silent. What do you think the truth of the matter is? Picking up the coffee and taking a sip, Tony Stark looked at Suche and asked seriously. Listening to Tony ask himself, Suche gently turned the coffee cup. I'm not sure, but according to the analysis of your previous points, what you said also makes sense. Look, I knew that my guess should be right. Hearing Suche also say that his guess is not unreasonable, Tony Stark turned his head to Steve and said, So, in addition to researching the upgrade armor, I also want to find out who is behind Obadiah Stane. Speaking of this matter, Tony Stark's teeth itch with hatred. Obadiah Stane, what a man he was. You have to know that you trust him so much that you even treat him like an uncle. But why did the ambition expand to the point where he wished to kill himself immediately? It must be because some kind of force is bewitching behind it. No matter what the reason is, Tony Stark decided to find out this behind-the-scenes force. Hi, Mr. Superman. Hi, Steve. Good morning, both of you. Walking into the coffee shop, Pablo first greeted Suche and Steve with a smile. Then he smiled at Tony Stark. Tony, why are you still here? There are still 20 minutes before the press conference begins. So you should go back and prepare in advance. Also, an organization called SHIELD has found you, and I hope you don't admit that you are Iron Man in front of the media. And they've prepared a speech for you. Oh shit, I forgot about that. Hearing what Pepper said, Tony Stark remembered. I still have a press conference to hold. After all last night, although not many people saw themselves. Even if he opened the mask in front of Suche and Steve. But those people did not take pictures of their own faces. But Obadiah Stane was photographed by many people. As one of the protagonists, Obadiah Stane is dead though. But this press conference must also be held. I'm going to deal with this press conference first, and we'll continue talking after I get back later. I feel like I've caught something. Blinking at Suche and Steve, Tony Stark picked up the coffee and drank it all. Then he took Pepper and left together. Watching the figure of Tony taking Peepo away, Steve was silent for a while, then smiled at Suche. Sue, he didn't pay the bill again. Chapter 78 Loki. It's over. I'm a fake. Director, I can't hold it. Watching Nick Fury come to New Mexico early this morning. Phil Coulson reports earnestly. We've tried everything since we found this hammer that fell from the sky. But the director, whether it is manpower, trucks, or cranes, cannot take the hammer away. So I can only ask people to temporarily build a simple camp here. At the same time, let our SHIELD researchers conduct research and analysis. Speaking of which, Phil Coulson looked at Nick Fury and said with a smile, Director, before the hammer fell, you let us pay attention in advance. So, do you know where this hammer came from? Facing Phil Coulson's doubts, Nick Fury did not answer directly. Instead, he looked around and then asked, Has there been someone nearby who has a strong will and thinks the hammer is his weapon? Not really. Listening to Nick Fury's inquiry, Phil Coulson replied, After the hammer fell, before we rushed over. A group of people tried to pick it up, but all failed without exception. I see. Let the researchers analyze this hammer carefully, but you can't cause any damage to this hammer, you know? Also, if someone comes here and swears that this hammer belongs to him, then bring him directly to see me. Well, the attitude is a little better. Hearing Nick Fury's order, Phil Coulson immediately nodded and said, Understood, Mr. Director. Why is your face still like this? After issuing the order, Nick Fury saw that Phil Coulson still had cracked skin, one patch of white and one black cheek, and said, Didn't you ask our SHIELD therapist to take a look at it for you? If you don't recover quickly, I'm really worried that your girlfriend, who plays the cello, will dump you. Facing the director's chat, Phil Coulson, who had known Nick Fury for a long time, smiled gently. Director, I've been lying in the desert for 3 whole months, and the condition on my face is not bad now, son. The ultraviolet rays in the desert are really too strong, and the extreme agents even feel like they are about to change their skin. Facing Phil Coulson's words, Nick Fury nodded. You should also pay attention to yourself, whether you should ask those therapists to prescribe medicine for you or use other methods. Recover as soon as possible. Finding a girlfriend is not easy. Don't break up because of this at that time. Yes, listening to Nick Fury's order, Phil Coulson nodded with a smile. Wait until Nick Fury walks into the makeshift base to rest. Phil Coulson asked people to speed up the construction of the temporary base. Asgard, how's Thor? At the Bifrost terminal, Loki asked Heldam, holding the eternal gun. He was fine, although he was inadvertently hit by a woman's car in Midgard and taken to hospital, where he was electrocuted twice. But he is still not in any danger to his life. It's just that the soul can't accept the loss of divine power for a while and become a common Midgard. Instead, Mjolnir was discovered by the Earth people, and they seemed to want to study how to pick up Mjolnir. Earthlings. Listening to Heldam's words, Loki held the gun of eternity and looked at the magnificent universe in front of him. The people of Midgard call their planet Earth, and they also call themselves Earthlings. Also, we Asgard talk about the soul direction, but on Earth, they call it the spiritual side. How is God King? Faced with Loki's correction, Heimdall didn't pay attention, but asked Loki about the situation of the God King. Very bad. Looking at the magnificent and vast universe in front of him, it seems to be like a nebula map composed of countless bright colors. There was no expression on Loki's face. Father is still in a deep sleep. I asked Mother, and Mother said that Father may enter eternal sleep this time. I don't know the specific situation yet. Hearing the news brought by Loki, a trace of worry flashed in Heldam's eyes. If His Majesty the God King really entered the eternal sleep, then, now the 9 realms are not at peace. Jotunheim is about to move. Although Walter Alheim has withered, the remaining Dark Elves are always at odds with Alfheim. I'm worried that a big war will break out between them. Over Muspelheim, some people tried to revive their god Suttard, Hera Underworld. Mention the underworld among the 9 realms. Heldam didn't continue talking, but looked at Loki and said, Asgard, as an Asgardian among the 9 realms, if it collapses at this time, I'm worried that the forces that are about to move will take the opportunity to attack Asgard. Even those ambitious people dare not attack Asgard easily, but once a battle breaks out between them. This is extremely detrimental to us, Asgard. After all, not every planet in the 9 kingdoms has the same reality-dimensional guardian blue as Midgard. Listening to Heldam's worried words, Loki nodded. Don't worry about Muspelheim. With the eternal fire, the advantage is on our side. Walter Alheim and Alfheim can't make too much waves for the time being. Even Malekith seems to exist only in the records. As for Jotunheim, mentioning the kingdom of Ice Titan, Loki took a deep breath, and his eyes gradually began to focus. I will find a way to eradicate this greatest danger to our Asgard. Don't mess around, Loki. Seeing that Loki seemed to have made up his mind, Heldam immediately persuaded. His Majesty the God King is still in. If I'm not completely sure, then I won't act rashly. He raised his left hand and glanced at his palm. In Loki's mind, he can never forget that just yesterday, he wanted to be more sure of eliminating Ice Titan Lauf. When he went to the treasury to look for his father's collection of artifacts, Nuo Zhaohao himself came into contact with the casket of ancient winters. Changes in the skin. Although this idea is extremely absurd, when I have something to ask my mother for an absurd guess. Well, my mother said almost made me lose my mind. Turn out to be. He was actually adopted. Turn out to be. He was actually called a monster since he was a child, the son of Lauf, the king of ice. Ah, if Lauf is a monster, what is he? Son of the monster Loki Lofson? Fortunately, the mother's loving eyes finally stabilized himself gradually. It doesn't matter whether you are adopted or born by your mother. Asgard is your home, after all. I, Loki, will always be the second prince of Asgard. Everything I do will protect Asgard forever. Chapter 79, The Truth. Thor, are you really my real mother? Loki, don't worry. I've calmed down, Loki. Listening to her husband's worries, Queen Frigg said softly, during this time, you can rest assured to cultivate. Although Loki was not my son, he was brought up by me alone. Maybe this incident hit him a little bit, but I believe he will overcome this psychological barrier. Hearing Queen Frigg's words, Odin sighed. Don't worry, Loki is our son after all. Holding her husband's hand, Queen Frigga smiled softly and said, although he has always been jealous of Thor, it's because you have favored Thor too much these years, so that you have neglected Loki. I know, in fact, you have always loved Loki, but sometimes the love given by the father is irreparable to the mother. It's like the lack of mother's love is also irreparable for father's love. But it's okay, Loki is our son, although he always likes to be naughty and play tricks. However, his nature is not bad, even knowing that he is not our own. But I still want to believe that he will make the most correct choice. Well, in the eyes of every mother. My children are all—
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.